What's up, everybody? We did it. We did it. We got buttons pressed.
We need to-
I think names are in the right place. You know?
We need to do a "Who Are These People" intro with for INN News. Dun, 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 dun. Actually, Crab did like a. It really sounds like a newsy thing. It gives me anxiety every time I hear it, though. I gotta say.
We just need to do the news
Good
theme
job,
version
Thank
of
you.
Darude Sandstorm, but just with like the news theme bells.
Welcome to INN News, everybody.
Yep. What's up, everybody? So, how are you guys?
Friday. We got some people in chat.
Happy Friday. We're doing INN News Friday. Normally we're on Wednesdays, but as we all know, Wednesdays was 420, so we were doing other stuff. You know, it was good time. Go check it out on Rockfin. YouTube didn't like 3 minutes
hot with the Harry Carey
of my stream. So shout out to Jaime, who I imagine has to be high. But you know, I digress. So what else am I missing? What had everyone done this week? Jesse, you've been doing tons of stuff.
Yep.
Like I've been doing 8-hour streams. Indy's been doing tons of stuff. Collin's been doing tons of stuff. So, but we when did we
produce some live streams? And
when did we pull these stories, Indy?
Over the last week and a half or so. I was actually ready to, I was ready to go with these stories on Sunday for How Did We Miss That? But as it turns out, it wasn't really stories that one of them we definitely, too many people missed. But one of them was a story that everybody's seeing, and let me mute that now. And one of them is a story that I think most people saw, but we still want to cover it and talk about it.
Right.
So that's our deal here.
Zoom for person.
We're gonna talk some Amazon Union.
Smoke sauce.
We're gonna get a special performance by our musical director here.
Yay!
Our musical director is going to express his concerns about Bernie 2024 and do it in song form, which we can't wait to hear.
Yeah, that's gonna be good.
The lyrics were posted this morning, and I just couldn't stop shaking my head going, man, people are going to be really, really upset about this, but it's so right.
I need to make one of those voiceover buttons for an INN exclusive. Like we need that one. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like get ready for an INN exclusive performance. Like that's the shit I need.
Basically
tonight.
I think
at the Gulf Coast
Cristallo.
What was it? The Gulf Coast Coliseum. That shit.
This Thursday.
This Thursday.
Sunday. Exactly.
Yeah.
Raceway.
Commotion by the ocean. Slaughter by the water. Two titans face off.
I know that one. That's what's funny. Like that's a book of Florida shit there.
All right. So
all right.
Where do I need to look at to see your stories? I need to see Reef on Zoom to see that
one. Right there. I haven't pulled us up yet.
Boy.
So hope you all have prepped your anger butts for this shit.
Right.
Justice for Patrick. How do you pronounce this last name? Lyoya. I think I did that right.
Lyoya.
Yeah,
that sounds right. Lyoya.
The black man murdered by cop during traffic stop. So police officer shot 26-year-old Patrick Lyoya in Grand Rapids, Michigan last week. Videos released on Wednesday gives us a glimpse in the latest atrocious murder of a black man at the hands of police. No justice, no peace. This is of course from Left Voice.
Unarmed.
Right.
Don't
so Patrick Lyoya was driving this car in Grand Rapids, Michigan on April 4th when a police car pulled him over. Within 5 minutes, he was dead. Recent released dash cam video of the killing, which we can pull up, shows Lyoya, a black man, an immigrant from the Congo, being pulled over, allegedly because the license plate didn't match the car. It's unclear why the cop decided to run the plate at all. Once pulled over, Lyoya gets out of the car, and the police officer then begins to scream at him to get back in the car as he approaches Lyoya with one hand on his still holstered gun. Lyoya, who seems confused, is asked for his driver's license and, after opening and then closing the driver's side door, begins to walk slowly towards the front of the car, presumably to walk around to the other door. When the officer grabs him, Lyoya responds defensively and the two struggle. Lyoya breaks free, tries to run away when the officer tackles him. The dashcam video then shows them struggle largely out of shot. Captured, however, is the cop kneeing Lyoya several times in the stomach. Also released was the body cam footage of the killer cop. Complicating this video are two things. For much of the interaction, the body cam is so close to Lyoya's body that it becomes hard to make out anything that's happening. And right before Lyoya is killed, the camera was deactivated, conveniently, according to the police department. What the video does show is the cop tackling, grabbing, and attempting to tase Lyoya at multiple points. Lyoya, for his part, seems to only attempt to break free, run, and grabs the taser to push it down away from his body. For this, the state would have you believe that Lyoya deserved to die. The police also released video from a neighbor's security camera, which shows a little more than a pixelated conflict, and the cell phone video of a third party. The cell phone video is the most damning. Lyoya and the cop are seen struggling on the ground, using his hands to push the taser away from his body, not attempt to turn it towards the cop, as the cop yells repeatedly, "Let go of the taser." The witness, who previously yelled he's not resisting, as the officer repeated "stop resisting" during a moment when the body cam footage suspiciously went dark and audio only, yells "he's ain't got no taser." But it isn't clear on the video whether or not Lyoya has let go of his defensive hold on the taser. A few seconds after that, the cop draws his gun, puts it on Lyoya's head, and shoots him. Unsurprisingly, the cops and their supporters are trying to frame this as a justifiable killing of a suspect who posed a threat to the police officer. They talk about how they were a struggle, but that isn't what the video shows. But the video shows an aggressive cop escalating a traffic stop, physically attacking a black man as he was trying to comply, chasing him and attacking him when he tried to run, attempting to taser him, and then shooting him while the cop was fully pinning Lyoya to the ground. Every act of Lyoya seen in the video is an act of self-defense against a member of the racist gang who is frequently known to murder black men like Lyoya during traffic stops. Lyoya was murdered, executed by a cop for the crime of not letting himself be attacked, murdered for the crime of pushing a taser away from his body. Patrick Lyoya was murdered by the Grand Rapids Police Department. Protests have already broken out in Grand Rapids, which have active anti-police brutality organizations who immediately took up the case. These protests should continue and spread across the country and reject any attempt to justify Patrick's death because he defended himself against police violence. What do we think so far?
I believe that was Auto Force, by the way. Oh my God.
Yeah. So
Ezra Brain who wrote that at Left Voice. Good job.
Yep.
Like sometimes.
I mean, we've been talking about this for a minute, mainly because of my knowledge background. Me and Indy, when did we watch the original video that people can find? It was like
day after it happened, and
right.
Again, it's linked in this article at the top. So I don't know if I have it brought up on this computer.
Do we want to pull it up?
I'll drop a link in the chat to it. No, I don't want to pull up the actual murder itself, but but you know what we should do is, I'm guessing it's DMC8 or whatever, but what we should probably do is the beginning portion, which is what you pointed out immediately when we watched it. I think is relevant before any of the chase starts to happen and he starts to run. But what happens at the car itself?
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting.
And you notice they mentioned at the beginning of that article that he pulled him over because the plates didn't match the car, but it's unclear why he ran the plates. So again, it starts with him choosing to run the plates when it wasn't necessary. And there you go. I mean, obviously, I know I just don't see Grand Rapids police driving around and going, "Hey, let's run that white guy's plates just because." Sorry,
so that's
just.
We'll start here. We'll only do the beginning. We know the rest is fucking terrible, and I have plenty of problems with the rest of it. I mean, if this guy could make a fuck up, he did. And
I'm guessing this is probably going to get knocked out by YouTube, but I don't care because we've got it on Rockfin and we've got it some other places.
This is actually fairly normal for things to do. Guys talk about the traffic stop being a pretty dangerous situation. Getting out of the car is normal, and it's actually a lot better for the police officer, for this guy to be seen. At least this guy's seen, right? So already plus
Hands
one
are
for
visible.
you as the cop, right? You see no weapons. All he's saying is get back in the car. Everything's fine so far, right? The issue is he then gets out of the car, and right about here is where I would stop. There's a thing cops will call the conversational distance, right? It's a distance at which, one, if something happens, you have the ability to pull tools from your tool belt to use, right? And it also gives a standoff situation. And they'll actually, how many times have you seen the cop do this shit? Right? Right here, 6 feet away from you. That's standard shit. That's what we're doing here. So what they talk about, what happens is that 90% of the problem, your problems as a cop are going to happen during what's called engagement, right? The minute you put hands on is the issue, right? So we are at a routine traffic stop, right? Pretty normal shit. Plates are wrong, right? Guy gets out of the car. That's fine. Car door shut. Even better. Right? I'm going to come up. I'm going to talk to you, ask you what's happened, try to get your information, right? Which is what begins to happen, right? But where is he doing it from? Definitely not nearly far enough to get any...
way too close.
Too close.
To have the guy just reach out and try to grab that gun.
This guy, who is a immigrant from the Congo, who English isn't his first language, most likely, right? Who has trouble understanding you, for one, understands the physical pressure that's being applied here, right? This is a cop who can arrest me, do anything, right? And he's getting how close? And then the minute...
way too close.
The minute the cop senses he's losing control in any way, right, where this guy starts to casually walk away, right, he feels he needs to impose his power again, right? Because in his mind, power means control. So, hey, let me fucking stay right here. And that's when the guy panics. The minute you put hands on is when this guy runs, right?
Right on him. Like, come on.
Right. Well, it's also like, again, everything's fine here, except the cop is not in a position to deal with any threat. He's not in a position to do anything as far as like actual control, right?
No, it's in a position of intimidation.
Exactly. Right. And that's what I said. And I called it the minute before even, we watched the rest of the video. I was like, so what? He ran out of tools on the tool belt and went to the only tool he has left. And we find out, he pulled taser way too close, no distance, fired it. You only got one shot. Otherwise, it's just drive stun, which you should have started with just the drive stun. You can still engage that from way out, right? If you're really worried about it, and get distance. And at the time, what do you hear him say during the whole video as the taser is being fought over, right? Is like, let go of the taser. He's giving verbal commands. He's giving verbiage. Do you hear any verbiage when the gun was pulled? No, not a damn word.
That was a straight execution.
Right. After that, and you had the ability in the position you have. He has no control over you in that position. You have gun. He is face down in the mat, prone. You can get up, get distance, right, and then deal with the situation. At some point, you can choose to de-escalate as a cop. That was never chosen.
No.
So, I have a multitude of problems with the control aspect of this situation. This guy sucks on the ground, has no fucking empty hand skills, right? Other than a basic tackle and, basic stuff.
Taser.
So, right. Well, yeah, he went to the tools on the tool belt. When you're that close, when you're grappling range, I'm not even thinking about that. For one, the minute I think about that, there's statistics. Cops' guns are only used against them at draw. They're taken from you at draw. Tasers taken at draw. That means you drew, guy put his hands on it. That's what happened. Like, So don't do that. Just don't do that. You know, I'd rather you sit in bottom position in guard for 5-10 minutes till backup shows up, right? Like just protecting yourself, making sure you don't get mauled, right? That doesn't take that long for me to teach you how to do, you know, and when backup shows up, then deal with them. Or if that motherfucker wants to run, let him. It's a traffic stop.
And that's right. Where's he going? That's what I said. I ended up getting into. Where's he going?
Right.
Well, I didn't exactly get into it with my in-laws. I said a few things and then I bit my cheek in half.
Love you, man. You're great.
I love you too. When I was a kid, I feel like I grew up with the understanding that, like, if you have an encounter with the police and you run, now you've got even more trouble on your hands. Now you got a laundry list of charges. You fled the scene, you're resisting arrest, or blah, blah, blah. When it became just, oh, now they can kill you. Now you're fleeing. So somehow that's a threat to me and I need to kill you for it is just fucking beyond me. But that's what people just have accepted now. People go, well, he shouldn't have tried to run. Like fuck you. That is not a death sentence. That is not a threat to an officer. That's just an officer's excuse to get to take a life. It's
let me find this particular position. Hold on. There's another video done by guys called the Gracies, right? Who are they're jujitsu guys. They train tons of cops. That's there's tons of beefs I have with the Gracie family, but I think this is for me it's a mixed bag with them, because I would love them to teach better non-combative control tactics to cops. I want that to happen. On the other hand, you know, but right here is where I want to start it.
Yeah, they're a mixed bag. I will certainly back you on that. Go ahead.
In the meantime, we want justifiable. But now you have two absolutely opposing views on the very same incident. And we don't know all the facts and all the details of the case, but what we do know is that at some point a determination will be made whether lethal force was appropriate and necessary in that case or wasn't. In the meantime, we want to remove ourselves from that, right? Those two potential differing viewpoints rather on the same incident, and talk about what we are experts in and what we feel needs to be kind of shed light on, what needs to be discussed, because there is a component here which is the need for escalation of force in a situation like this, and what elements go into the individual officer's perception of the threat and the need to escalate, and what needs to be understood by the world, and what we feel is not clear to so many people, particularly those outside of law enforcement, is that on average, an officer in America, in virtually all states, and this is true for Michigan, gets 4 hours per year of training in empty hand control tactics. So for Michigan, it is a fact that officers get their 4-hour annual in-service training requirement. But this is disastrous, because in a 4-hour training block, you now have an officer who taser, pepper spray, baton, handcuff application, and maybe a grappling technique or two. So we're asking officers, largely as a country, to go enforce the law and to take people into custody with a level of force that is reasonable, justifiable, and necessary, without them having the tools to actually do so safely. And to us, that 4-hour dilemma is what needs to be brought to light here, because one thing is for sure, when an officer doesn't have the ability to control someone empty hands in a safe way, they will escalate. What happens is what's called an amygdala hijack, right? Normally when we're operating in our calm, controlled, rational decision-making part of our brain, that's the prefrontal cortex. But what happens is when you lose control of a situation, actual or perceived loss of control, the amygdala takes over. This is the fight or flight, the lizard brain, right? This is survival mode.
Lizard brain. That's
and when this amygdala hijack happens to an officer, because of the actual or perceived loss of control, all bets are off. Now, at that point,
So I just want to point that out. Not only did that happen to the officer, it happened to the guy the minute the officer showed up and invaded his bubble, right? We changed this into a flight or fight situation. That's what happens. You stop thinking with that prefrontal cortex that allows you to fucking rationalize and make decisions, right? And you're just motor skill, pretty much. It's just survival, you know? So, you know, to me, it's the cop's fault for getting past that line and letting himself have that issue, right? And, you know, not being trained enough to be able to handle a situation like that. Like, look, you're asking cops to do something that like if I had an MMA fighter go into a cage and I only gave him 4 hours of training a year and didn't tell him anything about his opponent or what his opponent would do, right? Like, and then on top of that, I'm only focusing on physical engagement in those 4 hours. No de-escalation, no, you know, mental health practice, no, none of that is in there, right? I mean, I feel like there should be 1 day a week minimum for these guys to be solely...
Oh, they should have like morning workouts together where they grapple and spar with each other.
Yep. And also...
beat the shit out of each other. God, I'd pay money to watch that shit.
interacting with like mental health professionals, learning as much as they can to do this difficult job that requires lots of knowledge and skill bases, you know, like
it's not just weapons training.
Right. Well, and the argument is that do you separate all those things? Right? Do you make sure that there's a guy completely designed to do mental health issues, right? You know, and then you just have this like law enforcer as a separate entity. I kind of think you shouldn't, in my opinion. I think you should make sure that he's almost much more focused on mental health and de-escalation. And then if there's a problem, empty hand techniques and control and, you know, all that stuff. Then you can specialize SWAT and all that shit if you want to do that later. But to me, it's pretty cut and dry on this one. Dude fucked up, made plenty of mistakes, you know, cost a dude's life because of his fuck up.
And should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and won't be.
This is cop malpractice, essentially. You know,
man.
And I feel like a lot of it is because for all of the normality that this has become, we still have conversations like these guys have about it. And I feel, and this might be a little cut and dry of me to say, but I feel like for the most part, the time to have those conversations has kind of passed.
Yeah.
When you look at the body count that our police produce, that in the country we put 185 billion a year into policing,
right? And
that money is like purposefully not used to teach de-escalation, mental health capacity. If they wanted to do that, they would.
They need a new margarita machine.
I feel like it's a very slippery slope to start talking about the mental state of the officer who, again, chose to run this man's plates for his own purpose and chose to put himself in this conflict, versus someone who knows that he's now in a situation where statistically the odds are pretty good that someone might try to kill him.
Yeah.
And
I mean, everything Lyoya did,
it opens up a lot of conversations and normalizes for me, like the kind of thing I had to sit through at befittingly a brunch last week of, you know, maybe the cops need more training, and that turns into maybe the cops need more money, and people being able to excuse even more money, like that's the solution.
Yep.
And that's, I can't remember what city it was, but they basically had a line for mental health services. They were like, don't call the fucking cops, call these people. And it worked really well. Big surprise.
At this point, I'm calling
so
the Bravo crew over at the
aren't trained to
jiu-jitsu
beat the shit out of you.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'm giving them a lot of leeway, this cop specifically, by saying it's just a fuck up, right? And not something that he purposefully put himself in those positions, right? So that he could do, I mean, I'm giving a lot of leeway, you know, I'm making a lot of assumptions to do that.
And I applaud you that, because I don't have leeway left. I think I
poured
that out of myself a while ago.
I don't either. Like to me, it's inexcusable regardless, right? Like,
For sure.
you know,
but no, there is. I mean, from realistically, there is policing is a practice. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, and it is valid to look at professionally why what he did was wrong.
Yes,
and like
so
you said, as soon as you get in someone's space,
right,
you've chosen to escalate just by your presence and getting up, you know, in their bubble.
Right. Well, and that's partly why I say those things too. Look, man, we're the only country who seems to have this much of an issue. People, you know what people do when they're arrested? They resist arrest. Do any of you want to be arrested? Fuck no. Right? You don't want to do that. You want to sit at home on the couch and eat Cheetos. You want the cop to give you a, you know, a pass and walk. Like, how many people want them to just write a warning and go home? You know, it's that this wasn't allowed for this guy because this cop decided he'd rather have control and fucking, you know, they talked about it earlier. A perceived lack of control is also part of this. If he perceives that he lost control in any way, his lizard brain can take over, you know? So I want that to not happen. And if there's ways of getting that to not happen, great. But I don't know. These stories frustrate me for two reasons. One, the technical aspect is just atrocious, you know, and then on top of that, no empathy, right? You know, people talk about it's justified. Fuck you, it's justified, you know.
No answers either. Like, how do you fix this? How do you fix this? I mean, you can train them, you can do this, but systemically.
Well, yeah.
Again, that's what Lady Alex M is saying. Lady Alex M's right over on Rockfin. You know, she's talking about how you know what do we do after we have the conversation when she's been having these conversations for 50 years?
50 years, right?
Thinking that you can reform a rotten fascistic part of the system is pointless. And if we know that the changes we want will not occur, what now? Right. And I say that, first of all, that we have to keep, you know, calling out the fact that it's still happening. Oh my God, my computer's freezing.
I'm trying to remember the thing people are talking about. You know, there's ways for courts to say that you were viable of self-defense against that police officer, and I forget what it's called. I think Steve was talking about it in regards to something else, but you know, it's essentially like you can deem the whole thing. Well, yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. It's just again, these stories are very frustrating. I know Collin has been wanting to speak for a bit, and I think he deserves to. So go ahead, bud. Fucking your words, please.
I mean, what can I say that hasn't been said for years now? In particular, you know, like at this point, and I think especially, you know, George Floyd more so, like, I'm just tired of having to talk with people and having them, you know, like, sympathize with me in terms of me, you know, being a Black man in America. And being like, oh, we get you, we understand this, you know, and shit is not getting done. And I at this point, you know, I said this to you guys, and I'm saying I've said it online, and I'm gonna say it here so people know where I stand. And basically, if you don't agree with me, fuck you. And I feel like I have the right to say it. This is why you cannot make me vote for the Democratic Party. Because I am not going to vote for a party that is justifying shit like this. And then the easiest thing that they say they're going to do is, oh, we just need to reform the problem. You can't reform this shit.
Some reform. You get reform.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Yeah, reform equals money. And statistics prove, I don't have the exact statistics, but statistics prove giving more money to police does not make places safe.
Yep.
Especially in low income areas.
Yep.
And you talk about the escalation, you know, like in this instance, the escalation of bringing more cops.
Yes.
Especially in low income areas.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to do shit. If anything, it's going to exacerbate more shit, which if you think about it, if you really think about it, that's the intention. You know? And so for me, it's like, if you're telling me as a Black person who could very well be in this space, and actually I've been in a similar space like that before, where I had a cop roll up on me late at night. I was heading home, you know, minding my own business. And I had a cop came up to me at the subway stop, and like, apparently because there was a robbery in the area, and a quote unquote to him, I fit the profile of the person who allegedly did the robbery. And I basically fear for my life, because it was like, you know, and this guy was going to come at me, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And if it wasn't for a drunk white woman across, you have a platform across from where I was, who was yelling at the cop, he has been here for the however long it was. He had nothing to do with it. You know, I literally ran home in tears, because I knew of the idea of the fact that if that woman wasn't there, that could have been a lot worse for me. And the idea that people, and the idea that people are justifying, you know, we have to vote for the Democrats because the Republicans will do much worse than this. Well, this is fucking just as bad. So why would I want to vote for either party that doesn't guarantee my safety?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I'm not going, and so I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry, not sorry. I'm not voting for this shit. And especially if this is under Trump, you know, the media is going to play this like 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, I barely knew of this story, honestly, if it wasn't for Sabi who reported on it.
Yeah.
That's how low. That's how much no traction the story is.
I didn't hear about it for 3 days, and I live 30 minutes outside of Grand Rapids.
Right.
Well,
I didn't hear about it until then.
You mentioned it to me first.
I dropped it in that group chat for everybody. Yeah, because I was like, I was surprised I hadn't heard about it, but at the same time, I'm not surprised, because that kind of shit gets buried now, because that's not part of the Democratic news cycle,
right?
You know.
Yeah.
But
that's,
you know,
that's
Nancy Pelosi made it clear.
5-minute headline. The 5-minute headline on Fox Local 3. You know, like and like all of them. It's all owned by the same people anyway.
Yep.
But you know what, though? It's not surprising, because a lot of these stories are like that.
Yeah.
There's so many stories similar to this, you know, that may be local, but just go under the radar.
Yeah.
The only reason why George Floyd, you know, got as much play as it did, one, under Trump, two, the idea like that was like 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's such an egregious example. Yeah.
It's full.
And you know what? People tried to pick that apart and justify it and try to find reasons to explain away why that was okay. So I shouldn't be surprised that they would do it with this. You know, that's just what they're conditioned to do.
Part of the reason
they do,
you know,
part of the reason they talk about justification is mainly the legal systems in like importance of justification, right? You know, that qualified immunity gives you the qualification to say whether it was justified or not. That's part and parcel with this whole thing. So, you know, and it's only justifiable if that guy, so, and this is the thing that the military talks about too, right? British military are told that if you are fired upon, you may use lethal force in return, right? The United States military is told if you fear for your life, you may return fire, right?
If you're scared.
Right. So what do you think happens? Who do you think shoots more? Like, you know, so.
And again, police choose to put themselves in an awful lot of scary circumstances all the time. Like, better run this guy's plates who's just driving and doing his thing.
Right.
And I'm scared. Better.
I mean, he profiled this guy. He profiled this guy, like to the point of you needed to engage with him to get some quota you have filled for tickets because, you need to admit that so you get your Christmas bonus. Boom. Like,
yep.
And then you cost this dude his life because of why, and I think that's why people are numb to the empathy of these sorts of things. They've seen it so many times. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to say this because, Indy, thank you for kind of mentioning this. And, I kind of, well, not a lot, but I probably will share this more on my channel more specifically, like as I, get more episodes going. But I think the idea, just this guy was a Black immigrant. I'm a Black immigrant. And I feel like there is a tendency, I think, among Black immigrants that we are somewhat better than African Americans, that we're somewhat immune because we're not necessarily, are from here. We're not necessarily within that culture necessarily. So in some ways that we have a leg up. And I feel in some ways, in certain circumstances, pretending who you are, that could be true. But at the end of the day, Black is Black. They're not going to care
in the eyes of the law, for sure. They don't.
They're not going to care. Like,
exactly.
Even if I had my British accent going, like, they're not going to care that I was born and raised in UK.
Right.
Like, all they're going to see is this is.
They won't even care about what color it is. It's socioeconomic. Like, it's like you're in a 95 Toyota Corolla. They're gonna pull you over. Like, it's like if that car's not supposed to be here, like, they get a fucking gut feeling and then they start running plates. Like, I mean, this is the thing. Like, this is why, if you look homeless, they're gonna sweep you off the street, regardless of if you're, so.
Well, sweep off, like, not sweep off. They will get hoses on you.
Yeah.
Now that's what they're doing now. It's like getting hoses on you if you're homeless.
And bulldozers. They're gonna bulldoze you and the fucking tent you have. That's the only thing you have, right? While every other place that you used to be able to go, my dad used to have to sleep under underpasses. Like, that's the kind of shit he fucking dealt with, and now you can't even do that. They put spikes under the underpass so that you can't sleep under there.
Yep.
Like, how do you expect, like, how my father did, going up on a dirt floor with 6-7 brothers and sisters, getting the fuck out of that, and, like, finding a way in life, if he can't sleep under that underpass when he needs to? Like,
and this is all happening in, under a democratic government right now.
I hated doing it because I had to listen to a lot of Joe Biden whispering in my ear. But there's a speech of his on the Senate floor that I sampled in a song. And it's when he's
it's so creepy,
justifying the crime bill. And it's one of those moments when a lot of politicians try to hide the really filthy parts of the plan. Joe Biden likes to lay it all out for everybody, and he's super proud of it. And he just can't hide how just fucking horned up he is over all their, like, machinations. And he says, what has every major crime bill that's gotten this far been? A Democratic crime bill. And then he leans in on the mic and he goes, that's the secret. A Democratic crime bill. A Democratic president wants 100,000 cops. And that's exactly it. Is, people just assume that you have a stance because you're a Democratic president. And he's like, A, there is no difference. B, I'm a fucking Republican if there ever was one. It's just, it's terrifying. But it's also a really great example of Joe Biden saying exactly who he is and exactly what the whole secret is, and he's very, very proud of it.
But this is all on record. This is all on record. And people are choosing to ignore it, on account of whatever reason. And when we call them out on it, like we're the ones who suck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
just kind of like you can't win, and then it's just all this propaganda, you know, that people are just kind of seeped with.
Exactly.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you know, like I'm just kind of numb to it all. Like this is kind of like, for me, and I hate saying this, you know, but it's kind of like this is just a regular Tuesday for me.
Yeah.
You know, it saddens me that like I have to kind of say it in these terms.
Yeah.
But that's literally what it is. But all I could say to people, as I said, this is under a Democratic administration who has made it clear they're not going to defund the police. They're going to fund the police state more, and they're not going to do shit, you know, as far as low income areas that, you know, can maybe de-escalate a lot of this. So to people who are kind of pushing me, you know, maybe within the next few months or even in 2024, that I have to vote Democrat because the boogeyman of the Republican Party, you know, is going to be a hell of a lot worse, you know. And I said this on Twitter, like back and forth, like earlier today, I want none. Whether you tell me less or better, like less, more or less, that shouldn't be the issue. It should be none.
Yeah.
So until administration guarantees there's not going to be any of this.
Yeah.
Well, and when, you know, and when DC's already going to go blue anyway, it's like, okay, you're beating me up for exactly what reason? It's so ridiculous and pointless and shaming and angering. Oh my goodness.
So
this,
Lyoya's family demands charges against officer who killed him. I just wanted to look through this just to close up. We were in an area that was not safe. There was a war, Dorcas Lyoya's mother said Thursday, and I thought I had come to a safe land and a safe place. Peter Lyoya, Patrick Lyoya's father, told the Post that he was told, "You are safe," when the family arrived in the U.S. as refugees. It seemed like we were in danger when we come here, he said.
Yeah.
I wish immigrants...
I mean...
I'm not sure who this one is. I'm sure they'll tell me. Zoe. I hope that is how that's pronounced and not some weird... I wish immigrants were better able to discuss regrets around leaving, and that regret wouldn't be weaponized as reactionary xenophobia. A lot of people don't want to leave, but are compelled to by various forces. Many people realize myths of greener pastures after it's too late. My heart breaks for all parents who lose children, particularly the parents whose children have been murdered by the state. But there's a particular pain for an African immigrant who wanted nothing more than to keep his son safe, but just couldn't be by absolutely no fault of his own.
I mean, I didn't necessarily... I feel that. I get that. Because in a lot of ways, that was my experience. Like, I moved here, you know, like, as an 11-year-old thinking, you know, like, somehow if I came to this country, that my life would be better. And in a lot of ways, you know, in certain ways, it's just been a hell of a lot worse, to the point where I'm like, why the fuck did I allow myself to do that? Now, granted, I was a child, so I wouldn't have known I didn't know the ways of the world then. But immigrants are coming here generally for a better life. And the idea that, and usually as a refugee, you're escaping violence of some sort. So the idea that you're leaving violence to come here to beget more, you know, and a lot of it is just because of just who you are. You know, like, versus being in the midst of a war, you know, it's...
I'm sure it's the last thing. I'm sure it's the last thing you ever expect coming to America, like on what you were sold and what you perceived America to be from the outside. And then you get here and it's not that.
Yeah. And I mean, it sucks because there's still that perception out there where it's like, you know, even traveling in Africa, where it's like, oh, America is beautiful, it's wonderful, and all this kind of stuff. And like, you know, and it sucks in a sense that I have to kind of share, you know, no, it's not really necessarily all of what, especially coming from, if you're white, or some privilege that they're able to bring in with that narrative of like, oh, it's great here. But me having to come in, you know, and kind of say, for me as a Black person, a person of color, it's not always great. Yeah. And almost having to tell internationals if they're thinking of coming here, I'm like, reconsider, you know, like depending on the circumstance.
I'm just thinking of Kamala. I'm thinking, do not come. Do not come.
So the Lyoya said they plan to file a federal lawsuit and demand that the officer be publicly identified and fired, as well as prosecuted. Authorities say he is being placed on administrative leave. The Grand Rapids community has also called for the officer's name to be made public, with demonstrators marching through the city this week carrying signs reading "Name Killer Cops" and Grand Rapids Police Department.
Which he finally was, by the way.
Yeah, I think he was. Videos, recordings from the officer's body camera, his vehicle, numerous security camera, and his cell phone were released this week. A father of 2 was killed after the officer stopped him allegedly because his license plate didn't match the vehicle he was driving. So, you know, nice to take a fucking dad away from someone. That's great.
Right.
But I'm looking for specifically
just a dad, a provider, a member of the community. I mean, just
based on what we see in that video, we believe that this officer should be terminated for engaging in unnecessary, excessive use of deadly force, Crump said at Thursday's press conference. And his mother and father and their family are asking that the state attorney charge him to the full extent of the law for killing their son, for breaking their hearts, for making his young children orphans, fatherless. Equal justice requires it. Lawmakers have joined civil rights groups in recent days to condemn Lyoya's killing. Here's Bowman. So we got Bowman.
Can I just say real quick, there was a line that stood out to me in his tweet. If you can go back up real quick. Because I'm so used to the poverty porn, murder porn from them.
Yeah.
I can almost read that literally as, we can't wait for another video that rips into our souls and buries our humanity. Yeah. Because that is just what they milk for the sympathy points that says, hey, we feel human feelings. We're human just like you, when they're actually 99% of our politicians are fucking monsters.
When they're the ones who
don't care about trying to.
They just funded themselves. They just funded themselves the protection that they need.
Exactly.
So this won't. So I'm sorry, Jamal, you suck anyway, but like this doesn't affect you anymore. You're in Congress.
Exactly.
So God forbid if any one of us like try to protest, like we won't get up to the Capitol. We won't probably even get even near it. So this doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
So
exactly, because when you're admitting that you're aware, you know, at the same time that you're voting yes for everything and you're funding them more and you're feeding this thing, it's a slap in the face to say, by the way, I know what it's doing to you. I'm aware how much it's fucking killing you, and I'm gonna keep on feeding it. Like that's what they do. It's better to just not say anything at all.
So here's another one of these people.
I think Cornel West said it, you know, they're using our black pain to maximize their votes.
Yeah. There can be no justice, but there must be accountability. Ayanna Pressley. Like,
and what does that look like?
Right.
What does that mean?
Rashida Tlaib decried the U.S. Senate's failure to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which passed in the U.S.
Which was shit to begin with.
Which was shit to begin with. Negotiations over the bill collapsed over Republican objection, to a proposed end to qualified immunity, which protects police officers from misconduct lawsuits, which is what I was talking about, malpractice, right? Like that's not only would you then that would allow you to convict of murder on top of that, right? But you would essentially allow it for like, you know, what is it? Class 3 unmeditated. Like,
well, that's good. You know what? Maybe the two of them will vote present next time.
Yeah, if we could just vote present. But anyway, this story broke my heart as well.
We should have a hearing,
right?
It mainly made me angry.
We should have a hearing and drag murder porn victims right in front of the whole world in an election year. and do absolutely nothing to actually fix the problem. But let's do that and get everybody thinking that we care about the problem. Yay, Democrats, 2022.
Yay, Dems. Woo. We can vote for Bernie
vote for
again.
Me.
Woo. Should we do that before we go to our next story? Give Jesse the floor a little bit.
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah, well, since we brought up,
you want to talk Bernie?
The Birdman's name, we are going to talk about Amazon a little bit and in the upcoming story. So, I think a lot of people do want to definitely hear this. So,
Jesse
I read it this morning.
Lucy this morning asked. She said she was going to be doing a show talking about the Bernie 2024 prospect that's been kicked around, and she said, "Could you think you could write something about Bernie 2024?" And I was like, you know what? I think I could. Let's give it a shot. And 3 hours later, I had this piece, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's go. I'm really, really happy with this piece, and I think some people will, and some people really won't, and that's kind of the fun of it. This is all about our prospect of 2024 Bernie Sanders. This is called Shepherd of Hopes. If you fool me once, it's because I didn't think a guard was needed. If you fool me twice, it's because I didn't learn the lesson, so it bears repeating. If you try the same play 3 times running, it's because you know what's coming, and you didn't come to lead, you came to purposefully be misleading. Democracy is dry. It's spent a century bleeding. The husk is gaping open to the sky out in the field where all the sheep just keep on circling and worrying and bleeding, waiting for the shepherd that they've tried to hide their faith in, but he's so appealing. They gladly give their fleece. It's such a freeing feeling that even when he leads them to the ledge and starts to urge them on, they're positively beaming. They were told that they were on their way to save democracy, so even as they plummet, they just gloat. They don't consider screaming. And halfway up the cliff, the shepherd's cozy little mittens wrap around the staff of shattered human hopes on which he's leaning. He shows the gentle grin that used to stir your inner spark, and he says, not me, us, as he gestures to the oligarchs. He knows that if he runs, they're going to stop him like a stolen car. And he'll easily surrender because it bought a lot of time for laying mines and all the grassroots. Suddenly, the tiniest of movements gets you blown apart. Suddenly, you're in a play that's set on an election day and voting for the fire, unaware you're playing Joan of Arc. Suddenly, the shepherd pulls the rug and slips a hood across your clueless mug, and everything goes zero dark. I'm gonna warn you once more before it's 2024 and you fuck around and find out who your heroes are. To take a step back from the herd, and you'll learn that you can spot who all the shearers are. If you really want to know the product that they're selling, I can take you where the mirrors are. If you think your voice is finally ready, I can tell you where the lyrics are. I hid them in a box I had to bury neath the cobble when they carpet bombed the promenade and raided all the street bazaars. Now all we've got's the marketplace, and you're too broke to even bother asking what the options for your treatment are. Suddenly, the raw debris of homeless human dignity will find it has 100 teeth for every badge and sweeper's arm. Suddenly, they'll speak in solidarity, and each is armed. Suddenly, those sheep can see the shepherd for his truest form and all pitch in at once to help him buy the farm. Now it's zero dark, all is calm and peaceful, save the distant wail of sirens that approach beside the flames of dawn. Suddenly, the carrot's just a string that's on a stick, and all your movements make you sick because the prize is gone. Now, we could go and flee into the forest low and meek, or we can exercise our right to feast and go and graze on Biden's lawn. Because he's been sowing seeds that seep a toxin out to sap a bit from each of us and keep on leaching decades after Biden's gone. So regardless who they summon out of hell to come and do the job, it will not feel like Biden's gone. But in that time of hopelessness, you cannot trust the shepherd when he once again comes asking you to humor him his siren song. It's cute that you can innocently, honestly assume that's just a symptom of a system that was wired wrong, not the standard feature, basic function, primary objective of a mass hypnosis firebomb. You don't need to know the words to cry along, because someday it'll hit you like an officer who pistol whipped their ride along. broke his jaw and kept his job and kept it moving right along. That voting isn't red or blue or black or white or right or wrong. Voting's like a firing squad where you can choose the firearm. It's slow extinction by and large. It's Super Tuesday, supercharged. It's all your futures, roots and all, just tossed out on a garbage barge. It's everybody dropping out to push the biggest oligarch. It's everybody voting fire, registered as Joan of Arc. Vote Bernie 2024.
Oh shit, man. Ah, Bernie 2024. Dude, I had to mute my mic. Jesse. I knew I had to mute my mic because about 3 times during that piece I go, oh.
There was
such a diss track.
Like I said, I wrote this at work, and the what was the line? He shows the gentle grin that used to stir your inner spark, and he says, "Not me, us," as he gestures to the oligarchs. Out loud, I went, "Fuck yes!" I just couldn't help myself.
Dude, I read. Voting isn't red or blue or black or white or right or wrong. Voting's like a firing squad where you can choose the fire. I went, "Oh my god, that's fucking amazing!"
You know,
wow.
I have to find it. I sent a tweet. I think this is so cosmic in a sense because I sent a tweet to somebody. I have to find it. Hold on. Keep talking. I'll find it.
Dude, an e-hauler, volcano-based solutions. Bernie 2024.
Yep.
Wow.
We got Cynic Girl in the chat. We got Charlie Max here. Ed's here. We had Extra Bola show up. He was saying you got to play with Crocus. You gotta go play with Crocus at the Gulf Coast Coliseum. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Human Love Solidarity's here. We love having the fucking audience so that we're not just talking to ourselves. But anyway, you ready for the next story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're ready.
Labor
this is
officials.
A story we've all been talking about.
Yep. Labor officials find Starbucks illegally fired 7 union organizers in Memphis. Right? So
what?
Right?
Yeah.
Memphis 7.
Get out of here.
Mm-hmm. So Labor Board prosecutors have determined that Starbucks illegally fired 7 organizers who formerly worked in a unionizing store in Memphis, Tennessee, backing up the union's claims that the terminations were clearly unlawful. I'll make this a little bigger for people. Hopefully that's okay. You guys can't see it at all, can you? There you go. But according to Bloomberg, the Labor Board.
Sorry.
Go ahead. If you want to.
No.
You want to?
I would love to. Yeah, can I?
Go ahead.
I've always wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
According to Bloomberg, the Labor Board is planning to issue a formal charge against the company for firing the workers unless the company offers a settlement. The workers, dubbed the Memphis 7 by the union, represented nearly the entire organizing committee at the store. Starbucks terminated them in February, alleging that they had violated a number of company policies, including the dress code and rules against entering the back room while off the clock. Ooh. At the time, Starbucks Workers United said that the firings were Starbucks' most blatant act of union busting yet. The company cited policies that have never been enforced to fire the workers, the union said, claiming in a complaint filed after the terminations that the company was illegally retaliating against the workers for organizing.
So in other words, bullshit.
Right?
Yes.
I'm hoping Howard Schultz is a smart man and he settles, but from the union busting tactics that have continued, I don't think he's going to, Nikki Taylor, one of the fired workers, told Bloomberg. We're going to win either way. It is a violation of federal labor laws for employers to take actions to retaliate against pro-union workers, including termination, surveillance, or other forms of punishment. The consequence for illegally terminating a worker, which is incredibly common in union busting campaigns, is usually very light. Oh, surprise. Typically, the company simply has to rehire the worker and compensate them for lost pay, which is just the normal cost of operation for the employer. See cost of doing business. Even after the labor board finds that an employer illegally retaliated against a worker, such cases can take months or years to litigate. Since fired workers would likely be ineligible to vote in upcoming union elections, firing pro-union workers often proves to be an efficient way for companies to union bust. Don't give people ideas. Jesus, Truth.
Seriously. Well, look, this is Sharon.
Five great ways to fuck your union employees over.
Right?
The National Labor Relations Board's General Counsel, Jennifer Abruzzo, is hoping to speed up the litigation process in order to bring more immediate relief to workers who have been on the receiving end of illegal retaliation, Bloomberg reported. Meanwhile, the company has been escalating its anti-union campaign, firing numerous workers since the first clean sweep of the Memphis organizers. Over the weekend, the company fired Sharon Gilman, a pro-union worker at a store in Raleigh, North Carolina, and a student at North Carolina State University. In February, a sink fell on Gilman while she was washing dishes. Oh, Jesus. Startling her, I would imagine.
That's how they put that, right?
Startling her ankle,
Startling
maybe.
her.
The company, which has lied about its reasons for terminating pro-union workers before, claimed that Gilman purposefully broke the sink. But Gilman and the union believe that she was fired for her support of the union. As Howard Schultz retakes the helm at the company, Starbucks' union-busting campaign may escalate even further. Schultz has been openly anti-union in recent events, and last week said in a town hall that companies like Starbucks are being assaulted in many ways by the threat of unionization.
Yeah, he was complaining again just today, or just the other day. He was basically saying that the employees are a threat to the company in the end. Like,
good.
Having to unionize.
You deserve a threat, Howard.
Is a threat to the company.
Jesus.
Wow. Okay. They make the company. They're not a threat to the company.
Oh, man. In a recent Q&A with workers in Long Beach, California, Schultz snapped at a pro-union worker. When union organizer Madison Hall questioned Schultz's claims that he isn't anti-union, Schultz said, "If you hate Starbucks so much, why don't you go somewhere else?"
If you hate
That's my Howard
society
Schultz
so
voice
much,
for the
if you hate
people at
society so
home.
much, why are you part of society?
Yeah, right. Exactly. The union has been incredibly successful so far, despite fierce opposition from the company. On Friday, Starbucks workers united won union elections at all 3 stores in Ithaca, New York, making Ithaca the first town in which all Starbucks locations are unionized. Suck it, Starbucks. 16 stores have now successfully unionized, and the union recently hit a milestone of 200 union filings across the country.
Yep.
That's fucking good.
And even more stores, a Boston store, even since, and this is from over a week ago. Sharon wrote this. She's the queen of the Starbucks stories. She's been on the story for close to a year, if not more, and following and tracking exactly how they've been doing this and which stores have been unionizing and the different union busting tactics of Starbucks themselves. And they've ramped it up in the last couple of weeks, even since this article was written. And again, solidarity with all the workers. They stand on their feet. These baristas, they make the coffees and the lattes, and they're selling all the different products while Starbucks takes home billions of dollars every quarter. Howard Schultz is so rich that he could run for president like Bloomberg, drop out before the primary even starts, and nobody even remembers he ran.
Like,
now they brought him back to union bust again, and he's been very vehemently, openly union busting, and don't like it.
Yep.
Stop it, Howard.
Who wants this one? Who wants to take the crack of this one? Rock, paper, scissors.
Well, I'll take this one because
go ahead.
Because this is another Amazon story about how Amazon and our wonderful friend Jeff Bezos, our bald-headed friend, and no offense to our other bald-headed friends, but he's not a bald-headed friend.
As Collin turns his camera off.
Half of all, yes, right. Nearly half of all warehouse workers in 2021 happened in Amazon warehouses. And again, this is calling out and shout out to Chris Smalls. Again, this is another Sharon Zhang banger. She is incredible. I can't gush and revel over her stories and her article writing enough. Hey, there it is. Now I can see it. But Sharon's article reads, if a warehouse worker was injured on the job in 2021, there was about a 50% chance that they worked for Amazon, a new report highlighting dangerous working conditions that the company has revealed. Though Amazon employed only about 33% of warehouse workers in 2021, it was responsible for 49% of warehouse injuries last year, according to a damning new report from the Strategic Organizing Center, a coalition between 4 major labor unions. The report analyzes data from OSHA, the Occupational Health and Safety and Health Administration. Overall, workers sustained nearly 40,000 injuries at Amazon facilities last year. Again, shout out to Chris Smalls, who had been screaming this outside a facility in Staten Island in March of 2020, in the middle of COVID, saying they're sending us in there to get sick. They're not giving us PPE. And this represented a huge jump, even from 2020 to 2021, the injury count. So what it means is that your Prime delivery keeps ratcheting this up because Amazon's injury rate, as it says, has increased by 20% year over year. And what's Amazon doing to fix this? So despite promises to become the Earth's safest place to work, the company has shown to be quite the opposite. As the SOC's report and other analyses have found, Amazon's serious injury rate is far higher than that of other companies. Serious injuries are ones that cause the worker to miss work or be reassigned to less strenuous tasks. That's long-term disability, again, or reassignment. In 2021, the company's serious injury rate was 6.8% per 100 full-time equivalent workers, the new report found. This is more than double the serious injury rate of other warehouses, which have an average rate of 3.3 per 100 workers. With 7.7 injuries of any type per 100 Amazon workers filed with OSHA last year, Amazon's workers suffered injuries at a far higher rate than those in the rest of the industry, who experienced 4.0 injuries per 100 workers. Now, the reason for this is the way that Amazon manages their employees to the second, I believe. It's not even to the, it's more to the minute. But literally, like it, you know, they're determining and tracking how much time it takes you to walk to this.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And every time you take a break or you go pee or this, something's monitoring you, and you have X number of packages to load. And again, Chris talks about this.
Right. And he also talks
that doesn't
about,
even count the commute. This is just what they do while you're here.
He talks about that, like, yeah, a guy can die on the floor and no one will get to him for hours upon hours upon hours, but he goes and takes a wrong
and they'll
break,
keep the rest of the warehouse working,
or he puts something in the wrong box or whatever. They immediately know and immediately are going to go find him and chastise him, right? I mean, this is a company that made wristbands that like vibro shock therapy you into like grabbing the right item, putting the right item in this, but it's like, you know, if your hand does something wrong, they're gonna come like yell at you, you know. So
again, the report's authors say that the reason for Amazon's high injury rate is that the company's strict quotas and obsession with speed, like I said, which it monitors using invasive surveillance systems to track workers' every move. It felt like I just said that.
Yeah.
The company also pushes hurt workers to keep working while they're recovering, even if the work will perpetuate the injury or make it worse. Back injuries are very common, I know. Again, musculoskeletal disorders like carpal tunnel or back pain are common among Amazon workers. Investigators have found repetitive strenuous movements place strain on workers' bodies, and symptoms often linger long after the initial injury. Now, what's interesting, and again, I don't remember if Sharon's article talks about this, but you can also talk about the drivers. And a lot of the drivers for Amazon, they don't work for Amazon. They work for third-party companies that Amazon contracts with. So they don't even need to report on exactly those, and they're not even part of the union when it happens. Okay, so companies' policies appear to have direct influence on its injury rate, which we know. While the rate increased each year between 2017 and 2019 from 7.5 to 9 per 100 workers, the rate dropped to 6.6 in 2020, but that's the same year that the company temporarily lightened its quotas in response to the pandemic. They also had shutdowns. So, although the policies were only in place for a few months, it was long enough to have a tangible impact on the company's injury rate.
Yeah.
So, to distract from poor injury rates, and Washington State OSHA investigations into the Seattle-based company have found wrongdoing, Amazon said last year that it would be spending millions on increasing safety and that it would halve the injury rate within the next 5 years. Yet same year that the company made that pledge, the injury rate increased. So great job, guys. So, quote, the facts show that for all its public relations efforts, Amazon is not doing enough to keep workers safe, SOC authors wrote. Amazon could choose to slow the pace of work or ease the pressures of its oppressive monitoring systems. But after doing so in 2020 to accommodate pandemic safety precautions, the company largely returned to its old systems of surveillance and pressure in 2021. as reflected in the injury data. How about just listening to one of the people talk? Ask an employee
being injured,
of the warehouse.
Right. That might be a smart move.
Injury data.
Yeah.
How about asking a person? I think what gets lost in all of this are the people, and that's what makes me beyond crazy. So Amazon warehouse workers have been waging union campaigns in part because of working conditions in their facilities. Workers in Bessemer, who are organizing the RWDSU, an Amazon labor union, which recently won a union in New York, have said that improving working conditions are a central plank of their campaigns. The BHM1 unionizing facility in Alabama, the report found that serious injuries increased by a whopping 43% last year. This is while they're in the process of trying to unionize. This is what the company is telling their employees. We're ratcheting up your injuries and we're ratcheting up the pressure on you to do your job while we're telling you don't unionize right now. Well, they can't really unionize and organize if they're out because they're injured, right? I guess maybe that's a play.
That's what the New Orleans Saints do frequently. Sorry, go ahead.
Bro. Hey.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, hey,
the company
can't
afford to ease its quotas. So the company can afford to ease its quotas, SOC pointed out in the report. While its policies appeared to push workers to injury, the company's profits grew by 50% from 2020 to 21, and of course from 21.3 billion to 33.4. And Bezos himself personally gained over 52 billion in net worth during the course of the pandemic. And didn't he also get divorced and have to give half his fortune away to his wife? And he's recovered that and then some, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Also making her one of the wealthiest people in the world. And nobody's really seeing what she's doing with it. It's a nice way to kind of bury half your money.
Yep. Oh.
And again, shout out to Sharon, Zhang, solidarity with our Amazon brothers and sisters. Chris Mills, please give us a call. Derek, please give us a call. We want to talk to you. We want to get messages out there and talk to people who were working in the union, who are organizing for the union. Tell us how we on the outside can help spread the word about the union, who we can be talking to, a local even the mayor of our local town. If there's an Amazon facility, etc., is there something that we can do to call awareness and make sure that they're holding these people accountable and that the workers are actually getting fair treatment?
Well, and I think tons of people also want to know,
have the right to organize.
How do you start a union without any of the other union organizing organizations which you did? People want to know that.
I'd like you if you could text them, that would be amazing. We've all tried to send them DMs and we've all been reaching out, and we totally understand and we love him to death. And we support him 100%. And we're not coming at this guy at all. He's had the world on his shoulders. He's had the world coming at him for 2 years, and he's finally gotten a breakthrough. And now they're going to really come hard.
Huge fucking victory against the biggest
and the one thing we don't want is you having is them putting kid gloves on you. I want you in there. Bite down on that mouthpiece. Start swinging, homie. That's what we want.
That kind of money, I feel like we see billion tossed around a lot and don't appreciate how much that is.
Exactly how much that is.
What was it? If someone handed you $1,000 every day from the time that the Pilgrims came to America and started fucking it up to now, you still wouldn't have $1 billion.
Yeah.
You still wouldn't have as much money as Jeff Bezos makes in a week.
He gets what's the rule? The one I remember for ending world hunger is what, 3 billion? Right?
No, I think it's more.
No, I thought it was 20.
Something like that.
20 billion.
I've heard that,
but is that forever? I mean, I love.
Yeah, I when you hear that and you never know, what exactly that entails.
Can't be a forever number.
But you know what is attainable is it only costs $50 million to fix Flint's water.
Yeah,
that's right.
$50 million, and no one's been able to pull that out.
They could rename the fucking town
Bezos Land.
I'll rename it Bezos if you change all the pipes in that town.
In 20 years there will be a Bezos town in every fucking city in America.
How terrible!
Just you wait.
That's true.
How terrible
Bezos
is the situation we're in that we feel it's almost easier.
I would eat a McBezos.
To beg fucking oligarchs. We're gonna beg oligarchs.
Eat the rich.
We're gonna beg oligarchs to fucking
JJ Bibbs exclusive.
Barbecue sauce.
I'm whipping out the extra viscous hickory.
On the McBezos. Oh, Steve.
And what was our new product
with JJ Bibbs on it?
Industrial strength brisket caulk.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Nice.
What the state that the fucking country and the world is in, that like our hope is like we're gonna beg a fucking billionaire to fucking spend a fraction of the gigantic mountain of gold coin this dragon has fucking like amassed.
We're not begging. We're not begging Reef. It's called pushing him left. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. You gotta vote harder, right?
That's right.
Like that's what we're talking about. Like that's our savior. Like we've fucked up if that's what we're doing. You know, like
yes.
All those fucking politicians should be fucking ashamed, especially the squad. Yep. The squad should be ashamed for themselves and shouldn't be anywhere near this. They don't deserve this win. They weren't here. Like, you know, like they're gonna do if any of them don't show up
to save face. Because if they don't, then people are going to assume they're opposed, and they have to
imagery.
Well, wait a minute. Yes, this is, and we talked about this before, and this is where I wanted to go with this. But is there more to the story, Reef, that we're going to do another?
One sec, sorry.
I think no, not this one. There's
not this one. Yeah, see, this is what they're doing to the Amazon union, and that was one of the things I definitely want to talk about. But but what the politicians are doing, and the reason why they need to reject every politician that shows up at their door, okay, is because every single one of them makes it partisan. And this whole thing needs to be nonpartisan and needs to bring in every single worker there, regardless of what political party they're in. If you're AOC, you bring in AOC, and we're on the left, and you know, people in our quote unquote space want to actually see her there. Now, I personally, know what happened and know that she shunned them before, and now she's trying to basically steal off their shine. But some people did think it's a good thing that she's there because it's now getting the attention. What it's going to do is it's going to make it a lightning rod that everybody on the right's going to turn against it 100%.
Well, they already tried. Well, Tucker already tried to do that.
Right, but any right winger that works in the warehouse now is against it because AOC has now made it that now she's taking ownership of it, and you don't see any right wing politicians. So now this is the left trying to take ownership of this when this is about workers and this is about nonpartisan. Okay, Lucy pointed out that there should be third party candidates. There should be third-party candidates. There should be that should be, and where are, by the way, the right wingers who are, by the way, pro-worker, I'm all about the American worker, and the guys that are in the streets. Where are you for the people that are in these warehouses? Okay, that just unionized, and all you did, other than the only person, to his credit, Tucker Carlson brought Chris Smalls on and tried to make it about AOC and shit on AOC and about the fact that the left backed them. Okay, let's call it for what it is. The Republicans are no friend to unions either. They're no friend to the workers, and I'll be the first one to call that out. Everybody's like, how come you only focus on Democrats? I don't. Republicans are shit too, and I'll be the first one to say.
But Republicans didn't come make me big promises and didn't tell me they would fix shit for me or give me any of this stuff. So
exactly.
I don't,
They're the
I
ones
don't
who
feel
aren't
obliged to
supposed
try
to
to hold
know.
them accountable.
Right. The other ones are supposed to know better.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to be better than the Republicans, yet we're yelling about the same things to both of you. Like,
except that half the Democrats were Republicans 6 years ago.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
But they got mad that Trump joined their party, and they're embarrassed about Trump and about all the extreme part of their party that they didn't want to own, so they just ran.
Lean in.
Blue is the new red.
Like, yeah, oh, dude, it certainly has been. No, it's the Uniparty trademark. 2021 Whitney Webb. So
you wanted to talk about this. This is what you're talking about. What happened? No one noticed except Collin. Don't worry.
I noticed.
I was about to say what I missed.
I don't see your screen.
Yeah, because your face is on the Zoom stream.
Oh, you
noticed
guys
it
saw
on
7 seconds ago.
I noticed it on
this
the
is what you
actual
missed,
stream because
Jesse.
I have
I did a whole Jesse lean in, JB lean in, right, with the cam and
nice. JB lean in. Nice. Let that work.
So people were watching. That's why it was a delayed reaction, because
nice.
I watched it.
So everybody. So what my big concern, on top of the fact that now you're making it partisan, no matter which politician you bring in, and why they need to reject every politician that walks up the door and say, get the hell out of here. This is about the workers. This is about the people. And you guys are making it about you, and you guys are going to make it partisan, and you're going to turn off 50% of the people no matter what happens. Yep. Republicans will turn off Democrats. Democrats will turn off Republicans. Independents and third parties will turn off both parties. So you just need to stay the hell away from this and not make it about politics.
Just for the record, not that the eyes of the world are on us, but just so I can state it, I am not trying to come at Chris Smalls for engaging with anybody, because by all means right now is the time to take any platform you can get. I will not tell Chris Smalls to stay away from AOC, but I will absolutely tell AOC to stay the fuck away from Chris Smalls.
Right?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's a big difference there. Like, you had your time, you chose not to. This is a photo op. This is saving face. Like, please don't bring your toxins around to try to water down a movement once it starts gaining steam.
Don't bring your platitudes. Okay, don't bring your image and your concern about your image and
cosplay as an activist once a year. It's
these MSNBC wine moms. We don't need them. We really don't right now.
Right.
You know, there's nothing wrong with drinking wine, but when they're watching Rachel Maddow and Nicole Wallace,
I do it every morning.
Going, yeehaw! That's not our crowd right now. And they're not on the side of union workers. I can tell you, the only thing that they're on the side of is getting their Amazon Prime deliveries quick. So you tell them that they need to take care of those workers so their Amazon Prime shows up. That's how you get the wine moms on board.
Right.
Come on, AOC, let's go. That's your message. That's what we have to do. We've got to send her to AOC and tell them that they need to take care of the workers so that Amazon Prime shows up on time. And we can even rhyme that. Look at that. Jesse, I smell another lyric coming. Amazon Prime shows up on time.
Me and Collin was here last time.
We already got it.
We did our open letter to Chris Smalls. That was essentially, we stated pretty much everything we stated here, minus the AOC specifically. We talked about Bernie. We talked about all these people are going to try to like attach themselves to your shit, right? They're going to try to get close to you. They're going to try to bring you. They're going to bring you into all the fancy parties, right? It's all photo ops for them. You know, look, you were able
to sheepdog people.
How much were you able to do without them?
People right. It's another way to sheepdog people into the Democratic Party too.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just going to be like,
right.
Oh, look, the Democratic Party is proving that they're for workers. And,
right.
And like, so,
I mean, AOC helped get to Amazon labor. It's that, right? Like that, they don't even notice that that's what's happening. You know,
I will say this, and I probably get in trouble, but again, I don't care. But I mean, there's no personally, I have no will ill towards Chris. Do what you need to do, brother. Keep fighting a good fight and all that. And I shared with you guys earlier, my concern with Chris is just who is around him. That, we have these conversations that we're able to look at it from these angles where, there can be more nuance as to to the degree of how like politicians especially should get involved. We're not entirely sure if Chris necessarily has that. And so like the idea that Chris, he went on Fox News. He has gone on to the bigger, independent channels. I mean, I'm not necessarily knocking that because there's a reach, that Chris is able to get on those channels that necessarily us that we're able to get yet. So, so I'm not necessarily knocking that per se. What I am concerned about is the people around him who may use this for their own nefarious means. And even to the point where like they're saying, oh, this is a good thing, that you're connecting with AOC and all that. you know, in a way that they're just going to try and warp the movement into something that it really shouldn't be. It should be about the workers versus the personality. You know, I'm glad that Chris is saying, you know, time and time again, this is not about me. This is about the movement. This is about the people in the movement. Yeah. But I am concerned that how, you know, just as Reef was saying and he was saying, you know, like that energy is just going to be sapped out, you know, so people who have no right to touch what's going on will make it about them to gain votes from people who are not really in the know about this situation in the guise of, oh, you know, the Democratic Party is pro-worker.
Well, imagine telling the establishment nothing.
That's the secret.
Imagine telling the establishment nothing, telling us everything, so that we can actually tell the people who are actually going to be in the streets anyway to what they need to do. That's what you want. You're going to get far more done in the dark than you are with them advertising you. To me, that's what I feel like. Go ahead. But yeah, I don't know. Did you want to cover this these other two bits of the story?
Yeah, I mean, so on top of what they're doing to, you know, this is the other concern is while Chris is doing his media tour, what is happening back at the warehouse to the workers? And again, I love Chris, and I want to see the entire Amazon workforce unionized. But Chris Legion, our brother who did INN News last week, one of the things that he did was a brilliant video. One of the first things I saw him do a video about was when they tried to unionize his workplace, and the Teamsters came in and took control of it all and, you know, tanked it from the inside, torpedoed it, even as it was successful, because what they've done is only the first step. Unionizing and agreeing to form a union is one thing. Getting, you know, agreement on what the policies are going to be and exactly how that's presented to management and how they work with management to get that done, that's a whole other thing. So what do we see here? They're playing really dirty. And that's what I want to see. Luis Felice Leon from Labor Notes. Labor Notes does great job of covering it from labor perspective. There's only a few that do really look at it from the worker side, but that, again, the company's built itself as the everything store, and now the Amazon is the throw everything at the union.
But you know what, though, Indy, as you're saying this, because I didn't know that, it would, I think the way that rather than a photo op, if the squad, any one of them were like, all right, you got through this step, but obviously there's going to be a lot more that you guys need to do. Let us partner with you to help create whether legislation or help support, you know, the following steps, or get them in touch with people that they're able to follow through with all these steps, because right now they're in baby mode right now, you know? So if the squad, any politician really is able to willing to help them do that, great. But we're not sure if that's necessarily going to be that, you know, and they're still very vulnerable where, as you said, this could be torpedoed very quickly, you know, in the guise of, oh, these politicians care about what's happening, you know, in these warehouses.
Yeah. I mean, so before we continue, Jesse's going to have to jet out, but we did want to.
I see what you did there.
We did have a request, and we had a super ray, which is always appreciated. We're gonna steal that from Pasta and give him credit, and we're gonna have to pay him a royalty every time we do that.
That's never dying.
But
he wanted to die.
Thank you, Anna Mayers, who is one of our longtime lefty friends in the space, who's been in chats and all the different live streams that we watch. She's a longtime friend of Indie Left, longtime friend of everyone in the space. But she asked for Jesse to play a piece called Militia Intent, and Jesse said, "Hell yeah!" If Anna Mayers wants it, she got it. So
she actually, kind of like with what happened with the Bernie piece today, she mentioned once, like, could you do a piece about food shortage? And this was before that was in the news constantly, and that ended up being a piece on Coming of Spring called An Abundance of Scarcity, that yeah, that's again one of those that had she not asked, I wouldn't have written it. So yeah, let me grab my guitar and let's do a little militia intent.
Very cool. So yeah, everybody's getting like a. So not only do we get a spoken word piece, we're getting a song on top of it, which is so cool. I'm guessing Jesse at some point will probably put music behind the Bernie song too.
What's that? You got to put that in drop D?
Tune up.
He's got to put it in Dadgad real quick. You know.
Shout out to Darlene, who's in chat. Volunteer for Indie Left. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out and supporting everything that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, solidarity with Amazon workers. And we wanna see them get respected, treated well.
Yeah. How long is this article? Not too bad. Well, I say that.
Not too bad.
I mean, like,
right? We may want to.
The guitar does not like the basement. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Open with a little baby bow.
Remember when you were friends?
I'll have to check. I'm pretty sure this song is either just hit its 2-year anniversary or has gone in like a couple days. We're right in that time period. The 2 years ago, I was writing all my first political records. So I think today was the day that I wrote Powder Keg. I think tomorrow might be Militia Intent, but it was all within a few weeks. So yeah, here's Militia Intent. Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your hands. Why play civil when you wouldn't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen? What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? No, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me. That I will pick my targets and assassinate them lyrically. That I will bring them out into the town square, hook them to the pillory and leave them there. And Hillary, I'll see you there. No, Hillary, I'll see you there. You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your head. I'll keep civil when you will listen to 500,000 dead. And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen? Now welcome to the fantasy of rhetoric. Welcome to the last of the free speech while we can get it. And I promise you can get it. All you corporate Democrats and second wave Confederates, GOP illusionists and neo-Nazi bureaucrats. And Stephen fucking Miller, I will see you in the aftermath. When all the laws are dust and there's just moral justice after that. And I will hunt you down through the wasteland if it comes to that. Just so I could rub you in the dirt like a cheap human Brillo pad. I could sleep fine when our beds are burning, Stephen, but I'll turn around and run into the blaze to get my pillow back. Long as I can lay my head down, I can live with that. I can deal with a little ash See, I could feel like a little of the old me burn with the bed and the rest of my past. The old world where we all lived and we can't get back. The old world where you didn't give and you'd still get back. Where you could rake in 12 billion and give none back. Well, those days are behind us. The virus will kill all of that. Your wealth is behind us and kindness is meant for the past. Our leaders would bind us and starve us and call it a fast. A sacrament meant for their God who they garnish in cash. They feed it the poor by the hundreds, that's all that it asks. Its hunger is legion and people in need are all it will have. Our only chance is to starve it and watch as it turns on them. Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. There you have it.
Wow. Yeah, it's one of my favorite. I keep trying to find the butter notes in there, you know? Like that needs some sick harmonies in there. I gotta find them. You know? Put that fucking jazz seventh somewhere in there, you know what I mean?
Right?
Like, gotta find that.
Oh my God, can you and I do like an EP of like elevator music versions of a few of my songs?
Yeah. Yeah.
That reminds me of like Rockabye Baby.
Right.
When my kids were born, literally I was playing that. Like I was playing literally like lullaby Rush songs to
right?
Spirit
yeah.
Radio and Closer to the Heart.
Yeah.
Amazing that I can play.
That's awesome.
Kids had no idea, but at least I didn't have to listen to this elevator music bullshit, you know?
Yep. Like I said, I think you need some 2-part harmonies, a little drum backbeat. You'll be all right. You know, like
and
I gotta have that.
Stay tuned. Jesse and I are gonna start doing a show soon.
Yep. Yeah, very soon.
You gotta mail me your cajon.
We're gonna do that more.
You know, that's what I need. I need one of those. I need your cojones. Essentially, that's what I need. But anyway,
I knew he was asking that.
Yep.
Well, guys, I got a boogie, but
all right, bro.
Yeah,
we'll finish it up.
It's been a blast. Always.
Yep.
Have a great night.
All right.
When's your
love you guys? Thanks to
when are you
everyone.
guys starting the show? When's that happening?
I'm thinking first week of next month.
Okay.
Yeah, Tuesday, May 3rd is what is the target date right now.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good to me.
I think we should kind of have I don't see why not.
Day after my birthday.
10 p.m.
Yay.
Yeah.
10 p.m.ish. It's more a late night kind of vibe. We're all just gonna sit down and let Jesse play some tunes, and we'll do some interpretation, and we'll talk about the lyrics, and it's gonna be a great time. I can't wait. I was blown away when you asked me. So
I'm so excited.
Super excited about that.
Everyone go find Jesse Jett,
brother.
At Jesse Jett on Twitter _ in the middle.
Give the wife a kiss.
You'll find it.
I will.
Have fun.
All right, bro.
Thank you.
Good
guys.
night.
Bye, Jesse.
Bye.
All right. So
what do you want to do?
We got this story about Chris Smalls. Yeah, we got the story about Chris Smalls. I'm sorry, about the Amazon labor union and how they're being screwed with now by Amazon and what Amazon's pulling and some of the crap that they're pulling.
I had to switch to
Labor Notes has a good article about that. I also had shared an article about here you go. There we go. Perfect. Wait, I don't see it up on your screen.
Here.
I'm seeing OBS.
And then you want
they're
this
playing
one.
Really Dirty. Yeah, that's the one I want to see. Exactly. So Amazon Lesh is back in Staten Island warehouse.
Yeah.
And it's at the companies build themselves as the everything store, and now Amazon is to throw everything at them. Union Buster, what a surprise. Trying every trick in the playbook to throttle worker organizing at its Staten Island warehouses in New York City. The union vote at its second warehouse, a neighboring sorting center known as LDJ5, is set to start April 25th. That's this week. So the company has turned its focus there now. So all those union busters that were there to union bust the 8,000 workers at JFK 8 have walked across the street and are now in our little building of 1,600 people. A visibly shaken Madeline Wesley, who works at LDJ5, told reporters at a press conference last week. They're really fighting us, and they're really playing dirty. So can you keep going? Reef?
Yep.
They're playing really dirty. Okay. She's the treasurer of the Amazon labor union. So she's reportedly blamed Amazon has reportedly blamed her for the suicide of another worker. Which, what? Okay, she said management's been condoning bigotry to drive a wedge between workers. They're spreading racist lies about Chris Smalls, per usual. They're spreading sexist lies about her, trying to undermine her authority as a young woman involved with the union. Anti-union workers have been throwing homophobic slurs at her, and it's a war in there. Huh. What a surprise. This is one of the ways they infiltrate. So PSYOPs, okay? Amazon paid out $4.3 million last year to union-busting advertising agencies whose job is PSYOPs, lying and distorting facts to prevent workers from forming unions. And there is a link there. You can see where it says paid out. That's a link to the agency and specifically who was hired and what they did. But a campaign, okay, against a union is an assault on individuals and a war on the truth. The only way to bust a union is to lie, distort, manipulate, threaten, and always attack, wrote Martin J. Levitt, former anti-union consultant in Confessions of a Union Buster. So this is coming from somebody who was in the belly of the beast. Tabitha Wilson was also part of the SEIU's fast food workers campaign when she worked at McDonald's. Now she works at LDJ5, and she's been with the ALU since she learned about Chris Smalls' firing during the pandemic. Again, March 2020. Amazon filed the warehouse with out-of-state has filled the warehouse with out-of-state consultants. They already know our names after only briefly meeting workers, but we don't know who they are. Yeah, because they had your name on a list, and they said that you're going to have to watch these people and watch everything they do, and make sure that they're not going to vote for the union, and if so, you're going to discourage them or make sure that they're managed out. The union supporters at Amazon include many, like Wilson, who've been part of a union before, such as former crossing guards with Ask Me. Oh, there's a hilarious commercial about Ask Me. District Council 37, building cleaners with SEIU Local 32BJ, and hospital clerical workers with 1199 SEIU. Other places got unions. Why don't y'all want unions? Said Ashley Banks, a pseudonym to protect her from company retaliation. Of course, Ashley Banks, the best daughter on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, by the way, and no relation to Courtney and Keisha.
So, I mean, Vivian's my favorite, but I feel you.
Yeah, but she's not a sister. She's not one of the daughters. I can't believe the building across from us, JFK 8, got a union. I thought it wasn't doable until now, said 18-year-old Ursula Tomasak. I don't know how long she's been working there at 18. Okay, it doesn't make sense to me that they bring people from other states and warehouses to tell us to vote no, says Memo Merlin, 22, who's leaning towards voting yes. Leaning towards vote. See, this is what propaganda does. Why are they leaning towards voting yes? Because somebody's in their ear telling them that it's actually bad for them. The company's brought in ultra-conservative union buster Rebecca Smith, as Lauren Hari Gurley reported in Vice. Smith wrote an anti-union propaganda book, Union Hypocrisy. She's a turncoat who trades on her Teamsters background, though what she did for the union was safety training, and reportedly her co-workers there petitioned to get her fired for incompetence. But yet she's running around saying, this is what I learned about the union.
Yeah.
One of the consultant firms advertises that it offers, quote, a team of men and women who represent bilingual, ethnic, and cultural diversity, quote unquote, that will meet with individual employees, establishing both rapport and credibility, and notes that its services will help address situations which the company's management and supervisors do not reflect the racial mix of the workforce, reported Terry Gerstein of the Harvard Law School Labor and Work-Life Program. It's funny that you mentioned this because a friend of mine actually got called into a diversity training thing this morning, and they showed him a chart and they showed them what the executive makeup of the company was. And there's one bar, it's a bar chart, and one bar goes pretty high and the other bar doesn't go up nearly as high. And they go through this whole thing and they're setting it all up that, don't you think there's something wrong with this kind of an imbalance? And everybody knows what's coming, what the big bar is, okay, because it's executive leadership. So it's all white dudes. I'm like, yeah, so you're a white dude. And he's the only white dude in the meeting, by the way. So they're basically trapping him and pinning him to have this meeting to the point where he's like, yeah, by the way, so what is the percentage of the company's racial breakdown profile-wise? Does this align with that? Yeah, actually, it's within a couple of points. So what are we talking about here? Maybe it's a systemic company thing, but it's not specifically about the executive leadership. But okay, I digress.
But they're saying this about the union, right?
I heard about today.
This is like
that's right.
A wokeness to kill the union movement. Like,
right. The company is saying that the warehouse isn't diverse enough because they don't hire enough black and brown people. Really?
Right.
And not-
It's like
and
that's
not
their
enough
fault.
workers
That's then
who are
their
physically
fault.
Capable. But wait a minute. That's all that works. I mean, that not. I wouldn't say all that works, but they have I guarantee you, they're a lot more diverse than America is.
Yeah.
At an Amazon facility, Collin, would you agree with that?
Probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, this is like,
so
this is
again.
you caused
I'm not
the problem.
A fighting type, but
right. Here you go. Go ahead.
So again, despite Amazon's efforts, many workers are resisting the grip of fear. Kathleen Cole got involved with the union after she was compelled to attend a captive audience meeting. She recalled a fellow worker asking one of these meetings, if I vote for the union, could that be held against me? Could I be fired? And the union buster wouldn't answer the question. He just kept going around in circles. So I got angry because I'm like, he's intimidating this poor guy. And she stood up. Then she stood up saying, no, you cannot be fired for signing a union card. I'm not a fighting type, but that's just wrong. Yeah. To be honest with you, if they were fair and neutral in these meetings, I probably never would have gotten involved, but they aren't fair and neutral because it's worth billions of dollars in profit to them.
Yeah.
And to Jeff Bezos specifically, and to the executive board in compensation. So weighing the choice. So this reporter spoke to more than 50 workers at various shift changes over the past weekend and found many were still undecided, seeking more information. Eric Alberto, 19, said he'd make up his mind after he reads ALU's Constitution and bylaws, which are available online, to learn more about what the union stands for and its plans. Anthony Hernandez, 24. Again, these are young, they are people of color, and they are physically capable, because you can't not work at an Amazon facility warehouse and not be physically capable. All right. Anthony Hernandez is concerned about whether the union can deliver. I don't know which fact is true and which isn't. And again, that's because of the union busting. Alexandro, I am not going to mess with his last name again. 22 has been working at LDJ5 since it opened in 2020. No, it's like Shaka Middle, but again, I don't want to mess it up, and I apologize for that. Okay, but this guy had a bad experience with unions in his native Mexico, where he worked at the VW auto plant. Again, that was the union, the UAW, and union busters. But he said he would vote for the union if it would win extra pay for skilled workers like Learning Ambassador, where you can train other workers, and trailer docking and releasing, a job in the trailer yard that workers must be certified to perform. So again, what they're looking for, not only are they looking for pay, but they're also looking for advancement opportunities. They're looking for mentoring. They're looking for growth potential. Okay, so these two argue. Scroll up a little bit. You just went past it. That Amazon should bump workers' pay once they take the exams and get certified to perform these roles, even if they don't get put in those roles, because they're planning to do that. They invested the time to do it. Amazon should reward them. Yeah, workers want voluntary extra time and a return to 20-minute breaks, which Amazon trimmed down to 15 minutes. They're literally managing down to the 5 minutes. Unlike it at JFK 8, where workers have sore and tired bodies from grueling shifts, the top grievance at the sorting center, LDJ 5, is not getting enough hours to make ends meet. I mean, they don't get enough hours, so they need more hours at the facility. Once outside the facility, after shift change, JFK 8 worker Justine Medina confirmed what I had heard about the need for more hours. You got a lot of part-time workers here that want to be full-time. They put in applications to transfer to full-time, but the bosses here, instead of letting them do that, they flooded the warehouse with part-time workers to not have to give them the sort of meager benefits that exist for full-time workers.
Yeah.
Right.
When I worked in, honestly, when I was more in the automotive industry, in the capitalist system, I used to say all the time, why don't we hire people for 30 hours a week and say, 9 to 3, 3 to 9 shifts, you pick up better coverage and you don't have to pay benefits because you're only required at 32 hours. Now, that's an awful thing to say. And I didn't know any better at the time. I didn't realize how critical they were, and et cetera. But of course, now I fight for the exact opposite on a daily basis. But everybody has to get through that point where they're educated to the, even I was propagandized and didn't realize what that truly meant. But again, another common concern revolves around ALU being too new and inexperienced to effectively negotiate a contract. And this is one of the things that I was talking about. Another way that they're going to come at the union is that they don't know how to negotiate a contract with a multi-billion-dollar, with the biggest corporation in the world, and then explain We explained to a lot of the unions that are in our corner. Now you have Teamsters President Sean O'Brien shaking Chris Small's hand, saying they'll give all the resources in the world. Yeah, except Chris needs to count his fingers afterwards. Okay, so basically every union is in our corner now, and there's no lack for experience, except that every union will tell you that you don't know what you're doing, and that you should do it the way they did, which is completely corrupt and corporate. I'm sorry. Most of these unions have a corporate structure that pay their executives hundreds of thousands of dollars and are not accountable to the actual workers.
Yeah, it's like corporate politics.
Screwed up the Amazon union. Yeah, the Teamsters screwed up the Amazon unionization in Canada. I know that for sure. We reported on that months ago, that they were the ones that were mucking up the problem. All right, but that it's a good thing that we went past it.
Yep.
ALU's self-organized efforts are now backed by the institutional heft of the labor movement. The support will be needed to withstand Amazon's fierce opposition and arsenal of attacks. The question is, if the union decides to ignore what those other unions have to say, and they're relying only on their support and defense, how long is that going to last? I don't know. I hope it lasts forever. But my feeling is they're going to side with the rich. Right. This is the company that has fought off many union drives for over the years. It expects surrender from workers and brutal repression from managers. When the communications workers and the food commercial workers were trying to organize at Amazon 2 decades ago, the company put its supervisors on high alert. Quote, if workers become anything than docile, managers were told, it was a sign that there could be union activity. They were, according to New York Times, tip-offs included hushed conversations and small group huddles breaking up in silence upon the approach of a supervisor, as well as increased complaints, growing aggressiveness, and dawdling in the bathroom. Literally, again, because they're managing them down to the 5 minutes. They're worried about bathroom break time. And if they're hanging out in the bathroom, they think they're organizing in the fucking bathrooms. That's how bad it is. They're managing them so bad and working these people so hard. They've got to organize in the bathrooms because they don't even have their own time to do it.
Right.
Because they're driving 2 and 3 hours each way to work every day.
Yep.
They get injured. Again, calling on the high rate of injuries. And we're going to skip the injury rate thing because we covered this in the other article. Safety working conditions have been prime motivators. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
And wait, the general counsel for the NLRB is asking the board to make these mandatory meetings illegal. All right. Every worker who votes yes for the union is a hero. 100%. Can you imagine standing up to one of the richest companies in the world? Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
I do. I stand with all these people. Now, one of the other things that they've done is they've accused, Amazon has turned around and accused the NLRB of mucking around with the union itself and illegally helping and assisting the union over the company, while the NLRB is supposed to be a labor relations board that is neutral between them.
Right.
The company is saying that they're basically looking out too much for the worker and not enough for the company.
Right.
And they can use this potentially to order a revote. And that is one of the things that worries me, again, about Chris's media tour, which again is super important to raise the awareness and appreciate the fact that all these media entities are willing to have him on. The framing of it, in my opinion, has been horrible, and it has not been from a pro-worker perspective at all, for the most part. It's a pat on the head to the workers, but at the same time, it's let's keep that profit rolling, guys. And it's nice, but you know, it's not calling light to the awful working conditions that are actually in these facilities, and that these are put in place by people who work at the executive level of this company, and they're not making that link, that these are actually people that are making that decision. And you can go and hold those people accountable and ask them, why are you doing that? And they don't ever want to do that because that'll cost them their job. So
you ready for this one?
So yeah, this is another article from Harry Gerstein at the American Prospect about what Amazon and Starbucks don't let us know, and all the problems and all of the things that, as big corporations, all right, they're not really allowing. You know, they're trying to control narrative, and they're trying to make sure that the general public is, through their advertising partners, through their network partners, through their mainstream media partners, crafting an image of the company that is X. that is benevolent, that is pro-American, that is pro-worker, that is pro-everybody. And we're here to be your buddy, and we're here to be your best friend, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what's going on here. So now I'm seeing your other screen. So what Amazon and Starbucks don't let us know is that there are gaping holes in what the law requires employers to reveal about their campaigns to keep their workers from unionizing. And again, this is more union busting stuff.
Yeah. Here, I'll make it a little bigger.
And so again, this is a really long article, if I remember correctly. I don't want to go through all of this because we've been talking a lot about what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
But number one, it's calling on the NLRB from Amazon and trying to decertify the union already. Number two is messing with the hours and putting managers into meetings and around the union organizers to the point where it makes it difficult for them to have conversations with their coworkers about what's next and what to do with the union.
Well, yeah, I'll take it and I'll put it in chat.
Then they came at Chris.
Yeah.
Then they came at Chris. And they said that he was, or somebody in the union leadership, and I believe they directly accused Chris of offering free weed to the workers in exchange for a yes vote.
Yeah.
Can you get more reefer madness, dog whistly, racist nonsense?
You can,
man,
but
the way
fuck them if they do.
Oh yeah, by the way, let's remember who owns the Washington Post again.
I think I remember vaguely someone by the name of Bezos. I think Bezos.
The guy who owns the facility, the guy who is the CEO of all the facilities that are trying to unionize nationwide.
That's it. That's that guy. That guy. I remember that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
so everybody just remember that. I think everybody in chat already does. Bezorg, as E. Heller likes.
Bezorg. Let me close all these windows.
Cyborg.
And open up the next stories. You got. What do you think, Collin?
More stories.
Yeah, we got two more stories. We'll finish it up.
We had two more stories. Yeah, you're gonna do them all. I mean, we're gonna be here a while because there's a couple components to this one, which is about capitalism, censorship, and Ukraine.
Yeah,
and what's going on there.
Yeah, you got
Professor Wolff.
You got three things. We'll summarize. So I just got to pull up all these tabs.
So Prof Wolff, again, I have not had a chance to go through this one in depth, but every time Prof Wolff writes about capitalism and when it's coming, and its relation to war, I sit up and take notice. He has been, there's an Maté. There's Prof Wolff. Ukraine per se is not the issue. It is tragically a war-ravaged pawn. Sorry. Well, we need to edit that out.
Here, hold on.
And a much larger conflict.
And ready.
I'm gonna let Care Bear do that one.
And ready and action.
The role of capitalism in the war in Ukraine by Professor Richard Wolff. Porn. What? No. Stop. So Ukraine per se is not the issue. It is a tragically war-ravaged pawn in a much larger conflict.
Right.
Slow down and say it properly.
I know, right?
All right.
So this is from Richard Wolff.
This was in CounterPunch originally. Prof Wolff. Shout out to Prof Wolff. He was on Katie Halper this week. I need to go to the boys' room, so somebody else can take this one while I
got it.
Sure,
I'll be back to comment on it in a minute. Go ahead,
Collin. Sure.
Yes.
To the motive. Okay, good. To the motives for war in human history, capitalism has added another: profit. That motive drove technological advancement and created a genuine world economy. It also built new capitalistic empires such as the Spanish, Dutch, British, French, Belgian, Russian, German, Japanese, and American empires. Each of these countries built its empire by various means, including wars against price systems operating on their own territories, in their colonies, and in foreign spheres of influence. Wars likewise characterized interactions among empires. Global warfare, world wars, accompanied the globalization of capitalism and its profits motive. The war in Ukraine is the latest chapter in the history of capitalism, empire, and war. Capitalism There we go. Capitalism means enterprises run by small groups of people, employers who preside over large groups, hired employees. Employers are driven to maximize profits, the excess of the value added by hired workers over the wages paid to them. Employers are likewise driven to sell outputs at the highest price the market will bear and buy inputs, including workers' time, at the lowest possible market price. Competition among capitalist enterprises pressures all employers to plow profits as much as possible back into the business to help it grow and to gain market share as a means to maximize profits. They each must do so in order to survive because competition's winners tend to destroy and then absorb the losers. The social result of this competition among enterprises is that capitalism as a system is inherently driven to expand quickly. That expansion inside every capitalist nation inevitably overflows its boundaries. Capitalist enterprises seek, find, and develop foreign sources of food, raw materials, workers, and markets. As competition becomes global, competing capitalist enterprises seek help from their nation's governments to expand. Politicians quickly learn that companies in their nations that lose global competition will blame those politicians for insufficient support. Meanwhile, companies that win in a global competition will reward such politicians for their help. The social result of this is that capitalism entails national competition alongside enterprise competition. Wars often punctuate capitalism's national competition. The winners in those competitions thereby often tended to build empires historically.
Yeah.
For example,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Well,
you want me to?
Well, I was just saying, like, I mean, this to me is like basic. Like, I mean, every war is over resources, pretty much, right? Like,
right. Oh yeah.
You know, so I mean, this is just like basic world economic history, like right here that he has to explain to people. You know.
Right, but you know what? Like, other than reading this, I wouldn't have necessarily known this or made that connection to this.
Yeah.
You know, so and I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't. Like,
right.
You know, I mean, Dr. Wolff is a, college professor, but like, this is kind of stuff that you should be talking about in middle school, high school, to be quite honest. Like, and you wouldn't learn this.
No.
Unless, and even if it's like, I think even in college, you wouldn't necessarily know this in this sense.
Yeah.
Unless if you had someone like Richard Wolff.
To put two and two together. Like, he's talking about, for example, in the 17th, 18th centuries, British capitalism, and its global empire. In the 19th century, more wars punctuated the completion and consolidation of that empire. Like, that growth had itself stimulated all manner of challenges and competition, eventuating in more wars. As capitalism took root and grew in Britain's American colony, colonial enterprises eventually encountered obstacles, taxes, limited markets, no, representation. These obstacles eventually grew into a conflict between them and their colony's leaders. On one side, Britain's capitalists and King George III. On the other, the War of Independence resulted. Later, British leaders went to war against the United States in 1812 and also considered siding with the enslavers in the South against the capitalist North in the American Civil War. So, 19th century saw countless of efforts by other nations to compete with, challenge, undermine, or reduce Britain's empire. Competitive capitalist enterprises engendered competitive colonialism and many wars. The United States and Germany grew into the major national competitors for Britain. Wars punctuated the growth of capitalism across the 19th century, within the United States and Germany as well as elsewhere across the globe. The capitalist enterprises combined, centralized, and grew, resulting from the competition among them. So too did many nations consolidate into fewer numbers of nations. Wars became larger too, culminating in the devastating first of the two world wars.
In the movie JFK, Kevin Costner does this long monologue where he talks about one of the organizing principles of a government and a country is to prepare for war. It's one of the main primary functions that they have, and organizing a military and spending the money on the military and the capital, and basically it's funding the war effort ends up driving half of the economy. Okay, so that's the way they see this, is they're just priming the pump by spending the money on the war effort, because they drop bombs, and bombs are disposable, right? And and they need to be replaced at some point. So they figured out very early on they can keep the capitalism moving, and they can keep the death cycle moving on top of it. And oh yeah, they're the ones that run away with all the money while that happens. So
he talks about the British Empire,
World Wars.
Right, fought the German, World War I, destroyed them, both as contenders for global dominance, right? And then we go right into Germany tried to regain its global dominance a few years later, allied with the newest capital empire, Japan, to undo the results of World War I. It fails. The United States defeated Germany. Well, a particular red country would argue that it wasn't the United States that did that.
Right.
Germany and Japan.
How interesting. Wow, look at that.
To demonstrate its economic and yes.
Dude, Prof. Wolff. Wait a minute.
Right.
Wait a minute. Prof. Wolff. Come on, dude.
He probably gets into
the United States defeated Germany and Japan.
Right.
Ooh. That
Japan I might give you. I might give you Japan. I might give you Japan.
Yeah, but even still.
Yes.
Right.
Even that was a fucking atrocity that we caused.
The allied powers. I mean, come on.
Right.
No support, no help, and no love to France or to UK or anyone else that suffered loss. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So we defeated Germany and Japan
to demonstrate its economic and military.
Right.
This is that particular atrocity I was talking about. Right. Our nuclear superiority. Right. A consolidated global empire of the U.S. prevailed from 1945 until now. And now he's going to get into what's that called again? A new world something like that. The United States then learned what the British had discovered earlier. Building and consolidating a capitalist empire provokes an endless succession of challengers. Among capitalist enterprises, competition losers, employees move to work for the winners. The winners' enterprises grow and the losers decline. Winners' growth often entails still greater profits and more competitive victories. That growth invites and promotes new competitors, fended off for a while. Eventually, one or more new competitors discover how seriously to challenge the older dominant firm and displace it. Capitalist empires and their challengers exhibit parallel histories. As the competitive new enterprise destroys the old, the same happens with empires. That has been capitalism history, and that is what is now being seen in Ukraine. Britain, at the end of the reign of Napoleon... Yeah, go ahead.
Those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it, and that's one of the reasons why we look at this. And he's drawing these parallels. And again, we're all going to school with this guy. He's just brilliant. I love how he presents it. And
it's definitely bringing a lot of parts to it. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm not sure is the problem.
I'm not sure if you hear Indy when I said this earlier, but just the idea that this is stuff that you should be learning in middle school and high school.
Yeah, I heard in high school. I heard you say that.
Yeah,
I was listening.
And it's like this, and I had world history, but I would have necessarily made the connection, not addressed in this way.
Right.
But I think if I heard it back then, I would have appreciated. I loved world history, but I hated U.S. history.
Yeah.
If I heard it from this standpoint, I probably would have appreciated U.S. history a lot more. From this standpoint versus America is great. They freed the slaves and did some other stuff.
Yeah.
How about that they enslaved the people to begin with? But that's another story.
Right.
And then how that works and how that there's whole war is predicated on this resource. And I mean, so
and that's what
they deem as a resource, right? So
and then
after the reign of Napoleon, Britain won a century of global dominance. They ruled the waves, they owned everything. United States after World War did so too. Both empires provoked endless challenges. Nations, large and small, developed enterprises, industries, and political leaders who wanted to make changes or move in directions that differed from challenge the U.S. global capitalist hegemony after World War I. For example, across Latin America, references to manifest destiny resulted in small wars to remove competing challenges in the region. Likewise, Patrice Lumumba, the first democratically elected prime minister of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, showed signs of breaking away from the U.S. empire's control, both were removed. The one repression attempt by the U.S. that failed was in Cuba. The United States then isolated and economically hobbled Cuba via sanctions and embargoes. Warfare could be economic as well as military. Ukraine is another example, but with a peculiarity. U.S. support for Ukraine is an effort to repress another country that challenges U.S. hegemony, namely Russia. And representing Russia, too, is a peculiar, indirect way to get at the greatest threat to the U.S. capitalist empire, namely China. So,
hegemony, a word I did not even understand or know the meaning of until I heard it said by Richard Medhurst.
I think you can also use hegemony.
Richard, for opening my eyes.
Pretty sure, but it works both ways. Okay. Like thermometer and thermometer, you can use both of them interchangeably.
Sure. Hegemony. It's not for the kids.
Right. Octopodes. The USSR's survival after 1917, the World War II victories, and its development of nuclear weapons after 1945 created a potential challenger for the U.S. capitalist empire that had to be confronted. Franklin D. Roosevelt and Winston Churchill had accommodated the USSR's control in Eastern Europe after 1945, but that represented a loss for U.S. global dominance. Thus, Eastern Europe quickly became the site of an ideological or Cold War that pitted freedom and democracy against communism and totalitarianism in the USSR and its satellite states. It has to be a Cold War because the consequences of nuclear war would have been extreme. Because World War II, U.S. wars against other communist challengers of its empire had not demonized them as quote-unquote evil communists. During World War II, the United States even allied with the USSR to jointly defeat the immediate challengers, Germany and Japan. But after 1945, that was the preferred ideological terminology used for the USSR to justify protecting the U.S. empire. Then, when the USSR and its hold on Eastern Europe collapsed in 1989-1990, the old terminology faded in favor of a new terminology used to begin a new war on a new challenger, Islamic terrorism. But let's I'm sure he'll get to it. Who was backing those? Right? That in turn was economic decision-making made by two warring powers that were just out of a Cold War. We decided to do Desert Storm and the Gulf War and whatever. And, we supported the Mujahideen while these other groups gave Kalashnikovs to, particular other groups. Syria? Right. I think at the time, right? This was like the Reagan administration now at that point.
Oh, you're talking Reagan. That's the say that the Iran Contra scandal.
Right. I mean, it's all part and parcel with the same, we've had multiple wars essentially fighting the quote unquote godless commies and giving the ones that believed in some god some guns to fight them. Right. So
I'll go. The 30 plus years since 1989-90 have changed both the U.S. empire and its challenges. Russia proved too weak to hold on to most of Eastern Europe. The United States reintegrated much of that into Western capitalism via EU and NATO memberships, trade agreements, and Western investments. Slowly, over the last 20 years, Russia overcame some of its post-1989 weaknesses. The meteoric rise of the People's Republic of China brought new challenges for the U.S. empire, including a Russia-China alliance. Russia is now a capitalist economics system allied with the PRC, whose economy has a larger private capitalist sector than at any time since the Chinese Revolution of 1949. Yeah. These two powerful capitalist economies are the largest globally by geography, Russia, and population, China. They represent a major problem for the U.S. global empire. And that is part of what we're talking about here. Russia evidently finally felt strong enough and allied enough with a much larger economic entity so it could hope to challenge and stop further losses in Eastern Europe. Thus, it invaded Crimea, Georgia, and now Ukraine. Again, this is Prof. Wolff's his angle and his analysis of the situation. Yeah. So, in stark contrast, the U.S. empire's ability to suppress challenges to its global dominance shrank. It lost wars in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq. as well as its intervention in Syria's civil war and destabilizing Libya, he doesn't even mention. Its global economic footprint decreased in relation to that of the PRC. It proved unable to bring nations like Venezuela and Iran to heel despite trying hard for many years. Well, that's because you've been using the stick and not the carrot, the way the Chinese are using the Belt and Road Initiative, and they're not offering to build their country. They're saying comply with us or we're going to destroy your country with economic sanctions. That's why we're losing. So in Ukraine, on one side, is an effort led by nationalists who would bring another nation further back into the U.S.-led global capitalist empire. At least he does acknowledge that they're nationalists, and I do appreciate that. On the other side is Russia and its allies determined to challenge the U.S. empire's growth project in Ukraine and pursue their own competitive agenda for part or all of Ukraine. China stays with Russia because its leaders see the world and history in much the same way. They both share a common competitor in the United States.
Yeah,
it goes beyond that. It's also the historic, alliance between China and Russia because they were both quote unquote communists who have now adopted some capitalism into their society. But guess what they do?
Yeah,
they both provide every single one of their citizens health care. They're so bad, yet every one of their people can go to a hospital without worrying about going fucking bankrupt.
Well, like America Ukraine, in the 50s, at the end of World War II, we were giving GIs education. We were, labor unions were the strongest they ever were, right? To me, Russia's just bounced back from the economic downfall of the USSR, right? To the point where they have stockpiles of tons of resources. They've got, quite a bit of people. I mean, they're a giant landmass, right? As well as now having good relations with China, having good relations with a lot of other countries, right?
Yep. India, Pakistan, it's really, and again, that's driving our leadership crazy. And the narrative managers in our media are trying to make it seem like Putin is an evil dictator, horrible enemy.
And we're trying to swat them down with sanctions or whatever. So Russia's going, okay, we can also do economic war. We can also play that. So it's going right back into Cold War nonsense.
And every other major world leader is meeting with him and having, sit downs with him. And I know Argentina met with him. I know Xi met with him. I know Modi met with him. I know that Imran Khan met with him. And look what happened to Imran Khan. All of a sudden, he got couped and destabilized out. And was it a coup? There was a question of whether it was or wasn't. It seems by the number of millions of people in the street that it was, unless they were all propagandized into believing that it was. And maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I haven't looked that closely into it, but
Anna Mayer's in our Rockfin chat said that they lived in Estonia right before they were absorbed in the EU. Everyone was outraged and wanted both to do with it. I'll figure out the English on that later. I don't believe the narrative represents the people. Right. And they said who lost wanted nothing. Who lost most in the gross EU expansion? Poland. Look at them now, gentrified to shit. Couldn't agree more.
And neo-Nazi on top of it. Nazi Poland.
So
yes, 100%, Anna. Thanks.
Eventually, some compromise will end the Ukraine war. Both sides will likely declare victory and blame the war on the other among propaganda blizzards. The Russian side will stress demilitarization, denazification, and protection of Russia in eastern Ukraine. The Ukraine side will stress freedom, independence, and national self-determination. Meanwhile, the tragedy goes before Ukraine's suffering. The entire world is caught up in the decline of one capitalist empire and the rise of yet another. Conflicts between the capitalist empires can occur anywhere where differences between them flare up.
It's a proxy war.
Yep, pretty much. Perhaps the greatest tragedy lies in not recognizing the responsibility of the capitalist system with its markets of competing enterprises run/dominated by the minorities we call employers. That system lies at the root of these historic repetitions. The minority employer class controls or is the leadership of the nations that have absorbed and reproduced the competition that capitalism entails. The majority employee class pays most of the cost on both sides in dead, wounded, destroyed properties, refugee lives, and taxes. A different economic system not driven by profit motive offers a deeper solution than any on offer at present. Perhaps the war in Ukraine can awaken an awareness of its capitalist roots and teach people to explore alternative, systemic solutions. If so, this war and the resulting devastation from it could lead to an important turning point that eventually results in some positive outcomes in the future.
I mean,
Seriously.
Genius. It's optimistic, but
yeah, that silver lining better have lead in it, is all I'm saying.
Wait a minute. How do you thread the needle while avoiding nuclear war?
Right. That's what
he's trying to do. And he's trying to find a way through it. Oh, I will sign up for that plan.
Sure. I mean, that's what I'm saying is
I think Caitlin Johnstone would sign up for that plan. But the question is, does Joe Biden want to sign up for that plan? Am I so far?
Well, and he's stating that there's going to be a both state solution, and Russia might not go for that. Russia could just go, I'll give it another week. You know, like
except that the U.S. is probably not going to allow all of Ukraine to fall in the end. Well, I don't know what they're going to do to stop it or how they can stop it, but they're certainly doing everything they can right now, short of sending troops in.
Right, short of sending. But if they're not sending, if they're not sending troops in and they're not having them join NATO, what are they? Why would they waste all of our? Like right now, it's just an economic ploy to sell weapons, but
well, no, it's also to economically weaken Russia. And to drain their resources and to distract them from organizing with China further. Correct.
Right. Yep. No, I get it. So, I mean, but anyway.
Look what happened. Look, I've been saying since day one of the things that happened here, and the reason for all of this was over a gas pipeline that few people are even talking about. The Nord Stream 2 was about to become operational and certified. Germany was about to certify it. We were desperate to have them not certify it. We couldn't come up with a reason to not. So we started to make up this whole Ukraine nonsense, which was already escalating to a point. And then we started to indicate that false flags were indicating that his buildup was, they're going to attack this day, they're going to attack this day, they're going to attack this day. And finally, at some point, when they saw that there was the buildup on the Ukrainian side and what they were still doing to the people in Donbass, that's what we're talking about here. So this was another follow-up. Again, you're talking 20, this was 11 days ago already.
Yeah.
And quite a bit happens. But I love the fact that Aaron Maté made reference to Stephen Cohen in this article. And that was why I wanted to include it in our How Do We Miss That? And shout out to Aaron Maté for doing his for filling in for Matt Taibbi on Useful Idiots. And I had a conversation personally with him on the Collin after their show a few weeks ago that you can find. I think it's on my YouTube channel. It's on our YouTube channel. It might be. If not, I'll put it up there. But we were talking about independent networks and the viability of an independent network to challenge the corporate structure. He was not terribly optimistic.
Right.
But doesn't mean that I don't love his writing. I don't love him, and he's still fantastic. But we can agree to disagree on that one and still keep talking about it. So his article here is that siding with Ukraine's far right, the U.S. sabotaged Zelensky's mandate for peace. So on a warm October day in 2019, the eminent Russia studies professor Stephen F. Cohen and I sat down in Manhattan for what would be our last in-person interview, because Stephen Cohen passed away in September 2020 at the age of 21. 81. Sorry. Well, he was a little older than 21. The House was gearing up to impeach Donald Trump for freezing weapons shipments to Ukraine while pressuring its government.
Sorry.
You just blew up on me.
Thank you. Hold on. Let me get it good. Where's that at?
Oh, that's
right here.
Hey. Yep. To investigate Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Wow, about a thing about Burisma. Huh. The Beltway media was consumed with the frenzy of a presidency in peril, but Professor Cohen, one of the leading Russia scholars in the United States, was concerned with what the impeachment spectacle in Washington meant for the long-running war between the U.S.-backed Ukrainian government and Russian-backed rebels in the Donbass. Amazing that he was able to see it back then. At that point, Vladimir Zelensky was just months into an upstart presidency that he'd won on a pledge to end the Donbass conflict. Instead of supporting the Ukrainian leader's peace mandate, the Democrats in Congress were impeaching Trump for briefly impeding the flow of weapons that fueled the fight. Can you just do me that favor? Right? Isn't that what it was? I remember the phone call that I was listening to as his Congress were up a little bit. As his Democratic allies now like to forget, President Obama refused to send these same weapons out of fears of prolonging the war and arming Nazis. Joe Biden doesn't have such fears. By abandoning Obama's policy, the Democrats, Cohen warned, threatened to sabotage peace and strengthen Ukraine's far right. Imagine if that would have actually happened.
Imagine.
Cohen explained Zelensky ran as a peace candidate. He won an enormous mandate to make peace. So that means he has to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. But there was a major obstacle. Ukrainian fascists have said they will remove and kill Zelensky if he continues along this line of negotiating with Putin. His life is being threatened literally by a quasi-fascist movement in Ukraine. No, it's not quasi-fascist. It's not.
It is outright outright. Sorry.
It's not quasi. Yeah, it's Azov Battalion. Peace could
it's straight up moto.
Cohen stressed on one condition. Zelensky can't go forward with full peace negotiations with Russia, with Putin, unless America has his back, he said. Maybe that won't be enough, but unless the White House encourages this diplomacy, Zelensky has no chance of negotiating an end to the war. So the stakes are enormously high. Again, this is a quote from Stephen F. Cohen, one of the most brilliant Russia scholars of our time. There's a picture of Aaron speaking with him. May you rest in peace. There's a tweet about it.
Whole video about it.
Oh, there's video. Yep. There's him speaking about it. Okay, the subsequent impeachment trial and bipartisan U.S. policy since has made clear that Washington has had no interest in having Zelensky back, and in every interest in fueling the Donbass war that he had been elected to end. The overwhelming message from Congress, fervently amplified across the U.S. media, including progressive outlets, quote unquote progressive outlets, with next to no dissent, was that when it comes to Ukraine's civil war, the U.S. saw Ukraine's far right as allies and its civilians as cannon fodder. And I know Aaron's been using that terminology since the war broke out.
How did you Freudian slip no neck when talking about including progressive outlets? How did you do that? It's a good one. It's a good little slip in there, you know. So
janky. What? The Ukrainian battle against Russia. The Ukrainian battle against Russian-backed rebels, State Department official, and opening impeachment witness George Kent testified, was being waged by the Ukrainian equivalent of our own Minutemen of 1776. Oh, God. In his opening statement at Trump's trial, Democratic impeachment manager Adam Schiff approvingly quoted another Kent line. The United States aids Ukraine and her people so that we can fight Russia over there and we don't have to fight Russia over here. God, that sounds just like a schmuck president that I remember named W. We're going to fight him over there so we don't have to fight him over here.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Literally verbatim. You got a tweet from Aaron, and there it is. There's the clown Adam Schiff who wants to be president someday.
Oh,
no audio.
Yep, I got you.
The United States aids Ukraine and her people so that we can fight Russia over there and we don't have to fight Russia here.
Although Trump's impeachment failed to remove him from office, it succeeded in cementing the proxy war aims of its chief proponents. Rather than support Zelensky's peace mandate, Ukraine would instead be used to fight Russia over there. Right. And using Ukraine to bleed Russia, the U.S. has showcased its contempt for everything in Ukraine that it claims to defend, namely its democracy and security, by treating Ukraine as a depot for U.S. weapons. The U.S. has joined Ukrainian fascists in sabotaging the 2015 Minsk Accords that could have put an end to the civil war triggered by a U.S.-backed coup the year prior. Minsk called for granting Ukraine's Russian-speaking population in the eastern Donbass limited autonomy and respected for their language. This prospect was a non-starter for the far-right nationalists and Nazis empowered by the 2014 U.S.-backed Maidan coup. Of course. They're the Mujahideen.
Russian. And now they banned Russian speaking from the country.
Yeah.
So the uncomfortable truth
they banned the letter Z.
Kiev's cover. Right. There it is. Okay. The quote unquote. This is two specialists with prominent Western think tanks wrote in Foreign Policy magazine in March 2014, a month after the coup. The uncomfortable truth is that a sizable portion of Kiev's current government and the protesters who brought it to power are indeed fascists. Again, who wrote that in Foreign Policy magazine? I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Foreign Policy magazine. They do a lot of shitlibby, kind of shilling for the imperialist state, literally foreign policy. But they're all about diplomacy, and they're mostly anti-war. But they also do work with the intelligence community. You can see. Right. But the fascists block peace in the Donbass at every turn. Right. Okay. Yeah. That when the Ukrainian government voted on a special law advancing the Minsk Accords in August 2015, the Swoboda Party and other far-right groups led violent clashes that killed 3 Ukrainian soldiers and left dozens wounded. Then Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, who had signed the Minsk Accords at the time when President Obama was resisting heavy bipartisan pressure to arm Ukraine, got the message and refused to uphold Ukraine's end of the bargain. So in April 2019, when Zelensky was elected with an overwhelming 73% of the vote on a promise to turn the tide, his inaugural address, Zelensky declared that he was not afraid to lose my own popularity, my ratings, and was prepared to give up my own position as long as peace arrives. Wow, that sounds like what? Why don't we call him AOZ?
No.
I'm prepared to be a one-term president. Right? Isn't that what he's saying right there? AOZ.
Yeah.
Right. But Ukraine's powerful far-right and neo-Nazi militias made clear to Zelensky that reaching peace in the Donbass would have a much higher cost.
Wait. Hold on. I want to make this connection real quick. Let's go back up. Let's go back up here.
Go ahead.
This thing right here. So this is the AOC coded. Have we also not heard this from AOC? Right? Yeah. That far-right neo-Nazi militias are like that. We've also heard
are threatening his life.
Right. Yeah, we've also heard that
in Congress.
Right.
in Ukraine.
Yes.
Well, then again, you got Paul Gosar in the United States. He's literally like a self-professed Nazi, and he's in Congress right now. Thanks, Arizona.
Like that's a pull and a half, me putting those two together, and it's a long shot, but it sounds real familiar to me.
Oh,
she
probably you know what? Does she have a Ukraine flag next to her profile name? I would not be surprised.
Next week.
AOC.
Right next to Palestine.
AOC.
Just for the irony.
She's a Democrat. Okay, anyway, but Ukraine's powerful far-right neo-Nazi militias made clear to Zelensky that reaching peace in Donbass would have much higher costs. They would actually kill him. Right Sector co-founder Dmytro Anatolievich Yarosh, then commander of Ukrainian Volunteer Army, responded 1 week after his inaugural speech. He will hang on some tree on Khrushchev if he betrays Ukraine and these people who died in the revolution and the war. There's the tweet saying so.
Gotcha.
I mean, straight up threatening him. All right. He will lose not his position, but his life. Along with the threats to his life, he experienced direct obstacles to his peace mandate on multiple fronts. So he said, you know what? Fuck this. Instead of actually getting killed for this, I'm going to take the money. And he went from being a millionaire to a multi-hundred millionaire. So when he traveled to Donbass in October 2019 to promote elections for the rebel-held areas, he was confronted by angry members of the neo-Nazi Azov battalion, rallying under the slogan of "No to Capitulation." In one exchange caught on video, he sparred with an Azov member over the president's calls for a military drawdown. I'm the president of this country. I'm 41 years old. I'm not a loser. I came to you and told you, remove the weapons, he pleaded. He didn't tell him. He begged them. Right. He pleaded. And here's the...
Wait. He sent a strongly worded letter, you mean?
No, he actually did it in person. He went.
Yeah, he went
to the steps.
right. Well,
he went to their face.
I know who has also said that though. Clinton,
Yep.
right? Where I went to the bankers and told them, no, don't, please, like,
stop it,
stop it, cut it out.
I went to Goldman Sachs and I told them to stop it. Well, I sat on their board.
Cut it out, you bad
anyway,
banks. Stop it.
What's the tweet from Denis?
The video is from 2019. It shows a confrontation between Zelensky and a member of the Azov battalion in the Donbass. Zelensky demands that the neo-Nazis lay down their arms. The fighter refuses. Zelensky is not running the show. The neo-Nazis are. Yeah, I've seen this as well.
I don't necessarily think we need to watch this, but
no, we don't. But
right.
Zelensky met continued defiance. The same far-right forces set up an armed checkpoint to delay Ukrainian military pullback. Thousands of far-right nationalist protesters cheered by the liberal intelligentsia and carrying flares as torches also marched in Kiev. Man,
wow.
Where'd they get the tiki torches idea from?
Jews will not replace us.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yup.
Literally. That sounds like Charlottesville.
Mm-hmm. So when Zelensky press secretary, what's her name? Yulia Mendel, drew attention to the prevalence of civilian casualties in the Donbass, which she blamed on government forces' injudicious use of return fire. Yeah. She's saying they're spraying and praying out there is what she's saying. She was greeted instead with a help me out. Prosecutorial summons.
He's high. It's Friday.
Catherine Quinn Judge of the International Crisis Group reported in April 2020, 1 year after Zelensky's election, Mendel's recognition of the suffering in the Donbass, Quinn Judge observed, resulted from Zelensky's campaign pledge to treat residents of Russia-backed enclaves more like full-fledged Ukrainians. A non-starter for the U.S.-favored far-right nationalists. Right. So, like, we can't have that.
However, no such interest in Ukrainians' equality. Right. They want to keep them second-class citizens. They don't even really want them part of the country, but what they want is to purge and ethnically cleanse these people because they want the land, they want the area. They don't want the Russian-backed speaking people, what they now call the separatists, that actually... See, here's what people also don't want to talk about, and maybe they mention it here in this article, and I don't know if Aaron covers it, but the week that he attacked and that he actually started the bombing in Ukraine, he recognized those two areas in between as independent countries. And now you're saying that Ukraine is attacking an independent country. And I don't know, or some kind of an independent zone, which put them in some kind of a different status, which gave him the ability or the desire or in his mind, the permission to defend them because they are defenseless against the country of Ukraine that is shelling and bombing.
In World War II, I think this happened in a couple of wars, right? But there's a word, and I can't remember it offhand, but I saw it in an article that I'll go find later. About they're essentially like the opposite of what a separatist would be called, right? It's like a separatist for a country. So like the French, the French resistance, if you will, right? It's like that's resistance working for the Allied powers in this area, right? But it talked about it as that essentially these groups, if you call them this, it means that you will take on their war crimes and validate those, right? That you will like that by, essentially that it's giving you the okay to commit these war crimes because you're working for these, and it was very specifically a couple of different groups. And I find it interesting that that's the, all the war crimes that are happening there. I'm wondering if that's going to be the way they try to like fix that. Collaborators, I think E. Heller has it.
Yep, he does have it.
Yeah. So
again, although Zelensky dithered on Minsk, he nonetheless continued talks on its implementation. The far right continued to express its violent opposition at every turn, just this past August, when at least 8 police officers were wounded in armed protests outside the presidential offices. The far right threats to Zelensky undoubtedly thwarted a peace agreement that could have prevented the Russian invasion. Just 2 weeks before, Russia troops entered Ukraine, the New York Times noted that Zelensky would be taking extreme political risks to even entertain a peace deal with Russia, as his government could be rocked and possibly overthrown by far-right groups if he agreed to a peace deal that in their minds gives too much to Moscow. Yuri Hudimenko, leader of the far-right Democratic X, even threatened Zelensky with an outright coup. And that's the far-right Democratic X. How many far-right do you have? You got Right Sector, you got Azov, you got Democrat. The whole thing is all right-wing groups. Right. If anybody from the Ukrainian government tries to sign such a document, 1 million people will take to the streets and that government will cease to be a government. Well, wait a minute. First of all, where's any left-wing anything in control in this country? Where is anybody on any other side standing up other than what they're calling everybody's far right, from Right Sector to Democratic X to A's? Who's running the country that isn't far right? So Zelensky clearly got the message. Instead of pursuing the peace platform that he was elected on, the Ukrainian president instead made alliances with the Ukrainian far right that violently opposed it. As recently as late January, amidst last chance talks to salvage the Minsk Accords, Zelensky appointed Ukrainian security chief Alexei Danilov, instead pronounced that the fulfillment of the Minsk Accords means the country's destruction. At the final round of Minsk talks in February, just 2 weeks before Russia's invasion, a key obstacle, the Washington Post reported, was Kiev's opposition to negotiating with the pro-Russian separatists. Again, there's that word, separatists.
Yep.
They're not separatists. They're countrymen. They're also Ukrainians.
Right.
That's what they don't want to tell you.
Yeah.
Zelensky's acquiescence to Nazi forces was most recently underscored on April 7th, when an address to the Greek parliament was overshadowed by his airing of a video featuring a member of the neo-Nazi Azov battalion, and everybody in Greece parliament was very upset about that, or at least half the citizens, and half the citizens seemed to be okay with it. There was protests in the streets of Greece too.
Yep.
I think Zelensky found out very quickly that because of the Ukrainian right, it was impossible to implement Minsk II. John Mearsheimer says, and Mearsheimer has been one of the professors getting a lot of this right. Okay. Zelensky understands that he cannot take the Ukrainian right on by himself. So basically, we have a situation where Zelensky is stymied, and we're not going to take it on. Echoing his late friend and colleague Stephen Cohen, Mearsheimer stressed the centrality of the U.S. role. Like I just said, Americans will side with the Ukrainian right because the Americans and the Ukrainian right both do not want Zelensky cutting a deal with the Russians that makes it look like the Russians won. So this is the principal reason I'm very pessimistic about Ukraine's ability to help shut this one down. And again, they're going to use Russians as cannon. They're going to use the Ukrainian public as cannon fodder. And it's sad. And there's Professor. Who was that? Was that on video? That's
John
Katrina Nation.
Mearsheimer speaking to Katrina Nation. Yeah.
No, that's Katrina Vanden Heuvel, who's the editor of the Nation magazine.
Right. This is, I'm sure.
To what extent?
Zelensky ran for president.
That guy, is whoa.
Yep. No me. Oh, I see. No me. No me.
So while claiming to profess concern for Ukrainian lives, NATO policymakers have made plain their disregard for diplomacy. Instead, as retired senior U.S. diplomat Chaz Freeman recently told me, they have pursued a policy of fighting Russia to the last Ukrainian. Everything we are doing, rather than accelerate an end to the fighting and some compromise, seems to be aimed at prolonging the fighting. Freeman, the former Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs, among a number of other senior positions, said, invoking Freeman's warning, Noam Chomsky concurs that U.S. policy amounts to a death warrant for Ukraine.
Military industrial complex. And by the way, we're selling $100 million of more weapons, or $100 billion more of weapons to Germany.
Yeah.
And we're also going to be arming Ukraine on top of it. And we've sent them how many billions already in weaponry?
Yeah. On April 5th, the Washington Post made clear the prevailing viewpoint in Washington and Brussels. For some in NATO, it's better for the Ukrainians to keep fighting and dying than to achieve a peace that comes too early or at a high cost to Kiev and the rest of Europe. While rhetorically claiming to support Ukrainian agency, in reality, the Post added, there are limits to how many compromises some in NATO will support to win the peace. This is undoubtedly the message being relayed to Zelensky. Where you at?
Wait, you got to stop for a second. You got to stop for a second. I want you to read that first quote. If for some in NATO, it's better for the Ukrainians to keep fighting and dying than to achieve a peace that comes too early. A peace comes too early?
Early, right. Yeah.
Too early before they make profits.
Right.
Too early before they get to deploy all their bombs and resupply it.
Right.
Holy
too early
shit.
for what?
You just glossed over that and you just went right past it. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yep.
I just absorbed that sentence and wow, that is just.
And then the second one.
The gross, that sentence.
The second one, there are limits to how many compromises some in NATO will support to win the peace. God, peace. It requires so much.
But that limit doesn't include the lives. Yeah, that limit doesn't include the lives of Ukrainian citizens.
Washington. This one, Washington, is that one?
Washington. While this is undoubtedly the message being relayed to Zelensky by the White House and what National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, shitlib, described as a near daily contact with Zelensky's team about the negotiations with Russia because they're controlling it.
Yeah.
In sabotaging his peace mandate to the Ukrainian far right, the U.S. pushed Ukraine into a calamity that Professor Cohen warned about nearly 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Everybody knew this was going to happen. Okay.
There were moments in history, political history, where there's an opportunity that is so good and wise and so often lost the chance. There's a moment in history, political history, when there's an opportunity that is so good and wise and so often lost the chance. Weird sentence. Cohen told me in October 2019, so the chance for Zelensky, the new president who had this very large victory, 70+% to negotiate with Russia and into that war, it's got to be seized. And it requires the United States basically simply saying to Zelensky, go for it. We've got your back. By choosing to ignore the pleas of lonely voices like Cohen to instead have the back of Ukraine's far right, Washington sabotaged a historic peace mandate to help provoke a catastrophic war. Yeah. Killer peace fight, Mr. Maté here.
Yep. Yes, it was. And there, for some reason, I thought there was a piece by the Dissident, but I guess that was another thing. But there was one more thing about censorship having to do with Ukraine and Russia and this war and censorship. And Consortium News is one of the best outlets out there, uncorrupted. They're out of Australia. Joe Loria writes with them in the United States. Kathy Vaughan, I believe, is involved with them. It was founded by, I can't think of his name. He passed away a few years ago. Also, some of the greats in this space are gone at this point. You got Glenn Ford the last few years. We've lost some giants on the left. Stephen Cohen and Robert Parry. That's who founded Consortium News. And so again, Facebook put a warning label about what happened in Bucha when there is no, again, and this is what happened to a lot of Twitter started censoring and banning accounts based upon people's reporting on the counter narrative and the amount of propaganda that was coming from Western reporting about what happened in Bucha. And it looked like a false flag operation in many ways, similar to the massacre that happened in Syria, where the quote unquote chemical attack that the OPCW then later on determined was a false flag. And there was a cover up to hide a false flag operation that the White Helmets were there involved with as well. And shout out again to Eva Bartlett and shout out to Vanessa Bealey, who are on the ground in Syria reporting on that story. But Joe Lyoya, again, one of our favorites from Consortium News, talking about how Facebook slapped a sensitive content warning label on an article published, saying at the same time that it does not violate its community standards, but then saying that it does. Yeah, the article reporting that there are questions about who is responsible for the massacre at Bucha, Ukraine, appears on Facebook news feeds with a cover over the photograph associated with the article.
Hmm.
All right, clicking on the Learn More button brings you to a window that clearly says the article doesn't go against our community standards, but it is covered because it may show graphic content, and people can choose whether to see it or not. And they can click on the eye icon on the image and see it. Presumably, clicking on see link.
This one right there.
Will unveil the photo, which shows two dead bodies in a room with an open door somewhere in Bucha. The photo is graphic, but there are much more graphic photos and videos from Ukraine circulating all over social media. Clicking on see link does reveal the photo in the news feed.
Yeah,
it does show it there. Okay. So, however, after clicking on the post to read the article, a new window appears with totally contradictory information. Okay, that says that you should only go to links that you trust, and the link that you tried to go to does not follow our community standards. Excuse me? They are, again, they have incredibly high standards. This completely contradicts the earlier warning that it says that it doesn't go against the community standards. It appears that Facebook algorithms are disagreeing with each other. Facebook says its community standards are based on these values, and it shows authenticity and safety and
privacy and dignity.
Says there, privacy and dignity, right? So somewhere, one of Facebook's algorithms thinks, if an algorithm can think, that the Consortium News article warning against a rush to judgment about who was responsible for the Bucha massacre did not violate any of these standards, and another algorithm thinks it did. Second one thinks Consortium News has violated the dignity, safety, and/or privacy of its users, or that Consortium News misrepresented who they are and what they're doing. Facebook has a responsibility to stop doxing and to stop terrorists promoting their cause. If there's a wide agreement on who are terrorists, it should not be interfering with legitimate journalism. It also might help if it first gets the algorithms on the same, if it first gets its algorithms on the same page. Yeah. I mean, now, the one thing I will say is that community standards is different from news standards. And I even know that because you need to apply separately on Facebook if you want to be a news authority. There are certain other things that you need to submit to. I personally will not do it because I can't put a tracking pixel on my website. The website, the way it's created, maybe my new guy, Josh, shout out to Josh, will hook up a website where I can put the tracking pixel on and we can actually get certified as a legit news site by Facebook. But at this point, I'm just an aggregator of news anyway. I want the sites that I'm amplifying to be considered news, but this certainly is. Consortium News is as legit as it gets. Joe Lyoya is as good as it gets. And there were certainly reasons, valid, legitimate reasons to ask questions about the Bucha massacre. So screw you, Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm tapped, dude. We've been here like 2+ hours. I know there's another Chris Hedges article, but I'm kind of spent.
You're tapping out.
We've been we're going on 3 hours right now since we went live. So I think everybody else is probably burned out too. I know we had a couple of awesome pieces from Jett. Appreciate that.
Jesse.
Shout out to Jesse. Shout out to INN. Reefer After Dark next week. How do we miss that Sunday night? We're looking at, again, Monday, May 3rd, about 10 o'clock Eastern for Jesse's new show to premiere on INN exclusively. Also going to be doing on Saturday, May 7th, there will be a Friends of Indie Left, JB Font. That will be next. And we're talking Friday, May 6th right now, 4 p.m. Eastern, about doing a INN 6-month anniversary stream. Monday, May 6th is our 6-month anniversary since we launched the network live. And I'm pretty excited about that. And we'll see who's able to show up. And if I show up and I just go live myself and I talk about the network and I hype up everybody there, so be it. But I know at least a few people. Angel said he'll be able to make it, and hopefully everybody else will too. So there's a lot happening on INN. Of course, everybody watch Uncle Warren on Thursday nights. Extra Booyah. Last night was spicy and fire. He had Steve from Slow News Day, and he had Political Matrix, Marcus and Chris on. And they went long. They went long. Again, on Rockfin. Shout out to Rockfin. Subscribe to our Rockfin channel, rockfin.com/IND Left News. And now I'll let everybody else do their plugs.
I mean, you did almost all mine. So, you know, INN News
we're
will
on a lot of
be
stuff together.
Hopefully next Wednesday. I am hoping to get Lucy and Tara on with us. Collin might be there too.
Awesome.
Whatever. But yeah, that should be good. We'll figure out what stories we're doing Tuesday and go Wednesday, but we got to figure out who I'm having on next Friday. I'll figure that out too. So follow me on my Twitters at Reef Freelands right down there.
Thank you to Adam Ayers for the super chats tonight.
Yeah, that was nice.
Donate, I think $10 on Rockfin, which is really cool. I'm gonna get $5 to Jesse for performing the song on demand.
So
yep, awesome. That's what we do here.
And we still don't have a closer for this show, so people got to let us know how we should close out. That'll be fun to hear from people. So
we need to have, you know, it's who are these people?
Who are these people?
I think we need Nancy to take us out. Who are these people?
Yeah, we gotta find like a goodbye, you know, Saturday night. You know, like
everybody tip
like
your waitresses and draw. You're right. Run all the red lights and get home safe or something like that. I don't know. Don't run the red lights, but get home safe and fast.
Exactly.
Stand up news bloopers. I love it, Ed.
Make sure to stay independent, everybody. Labels are bad. All right. Good night.
Right.
Good night.